about the latest comic book news of the week. We've got stuff like DC Comics Ultimate Comics line with Scott Snyder. We've got all sorts of crazy stuff like an R-rated Ninja Turtles movie. Marvel has various X-Men news. There's some interesting comics that we'll talk about later today. Peach Momoko and Zach Davison continue to redefine what X-Men can be with Ultimate X-Men. I am absolutely blown away with the characterizations and the dialogue of Batman, Dylan Dog, writer Roberto Recchioni. We've got things like Transformers has a new artist on it now. Daniel Warren Johnson's still writing, but new artist Jorge Corona. These are just some of the comics that I have to look at. There's a really amazing manga that I want to talk about later. And we're going to have a very special guest, Mr. Harry Partridge. Many of you may know his animated work, but do you know about his comics? We'll talk about that in just a second. Let me just give some shout outs to some folks that are dropping in. Hello to all of you wonderful people. That's so kind of you to watch. Yeah, we are doing this on Tuesday. Normally I do this on Monday, but I do have a day job, and due to business needs, I had to work yesterday, so doing it today, Tuesday. I think it'll work. Tell you what, I'll continue to highlight comments and stuff that are relevant, but I think it's time to reach out and start our interview this week. Let's do an interview, and then I'll be going into the news of the week. Let's do it. Folks, we have something special. As you can see, I've got a different layout up here. I'm pointing to it so you can all see it. I've got a guest, and we're going to draw together. My guest has been making cartoons for over a decade, I think, at this point. He did the opening animation to Comic Tropes, and he has his first comic book coming out very soon, Starbarian Tales. That is an Indiegogo campaign that you can actually still buy into. It's already fully funded. This is if you want to get his comic. Look at this. He's already drawing. Please welcome my friend Harry Partridge. Harry, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on the show.
My pleasure. But you know what's interesting? I'm here. Let me get my pen as well. And I see that you did these sort of like lines like this, like a little thick to indicate some sort of shading. That was sort of how somebody like Mike Royer used to ink Jack Kirby.
I'm attempting lines. A Kirby fist, but
yeah,
it's not very good. This is a Vince Coletta Kirby fist at best.
I don't know. Of course, that's like my most watched video when I don't think that that's really too much representative of what I do. I try to be a little more positive. I just was like, this is my least favorite inker. I thought that no one would watch that. Everyone watched it. Have you ever had anything like that? Like, what's your most watched video actually? What's your most watched?
I think it's a Skyrim like video game kind of.
Oh, sure.
Tribute, I guess. I made it back in January, I think of 2011 or like December 2010, just as the game was being announced and there was no like gameplay out yet. And I crept in under the door like a little vermin, just kind of like, well, let's do a little video about that. And I think it turned up in the searches, and that's why it took off. So that's my most viewed video, and I don't by any means consider it my best, but hey.
Yeah, isn't that funny how that happens for us in YouTube? It's never what you really expect to hit, but it just means that you really should like try to put out your best effort.
Yeah, all the time.
So you've been like doing animation for quite a long time at this point, cartoons. And I know that these days you tend to have a few assistants, but for a long time you did do it almost entirely the character work and the actual animation by yourself. Now you're doing a comic book, which I assume is also like primarily by yourself. Is this like, what kind of comparisons can you make between the the early animation to the comics? What are the
Yeah,
similarities? What are the
I started
differences?
animating really when I was about 16, 17 years old, kind of got serious in my early 20s, and I did it alone for the most part, but I've worked with more assistants over the last couple of years. The comic book is being done with, I'm penciling, inking, and writing the book. I am working with a colorist, Ben Sawyer, who is coloring at the moment, doing a brilliant job. I'm lettering it too, and it's like, it's digital lettering. It's not like a completely organic approach to lettering, but I
Mm,
mean, it's been very different so far. And I would love if people want to check out Starbarian Tales on Indiegogo and give it a shot, by all
yeah.
means. But I really, this is my freshman attempt at doing a comic book. That's an Americanism, actually, saying freshman. Does that mean that means first time out, right?
Yeah, it does. You
Okay,
got
yeah.
it right.
I got it right. Yeah, I win some American points. So yeah, it's my first time around doing a graphic novel or a comic book, really anything like that. But I have read and enjoyed comics since I was just really a little kid, all kind of comics. And I feel like they've always been part of what I do and part of who I am. A lot of my kind of early animation and, well, even the more modern animation has had a kind of comic book lean to it, or has had comic book characters or a comic book style. And there was a long part of my life, my teenage years anyway, where I really thought that being a comic artist was the thing. That was what I was aiming for. That's what I thought I would do. And
Yeah.
then with the sort of dawning of flash animation and internet animation, I thought, like, well, I really like it when it moves and you can add sound. So I kind of fell into that for a long time, and now I'm dipping back into comics.
I love it, Harry. I am so curious. Like you, I consider a bit of a perfectionist when you make your animations. You always end up like doing, I think, more than what you set out to do, like for each shot. But what's it like now, where you're just sort of coming up with the key poses and stuff, and you're having to come up with composition
Composition, yeah.
for pages?
I mean, I still compose in animation or any kind of visual medium. You're still composing images, but yeah, that's been a bit of a learning curve, is getting used to composing for a page and the kind of the dance that all the panels have together. I'm really enjoying it so far, but it's not been easy. It is similar in many ways. You're still composing and drawing images, and you have to get your anatomy and your perspective. But I find that, like, the economy of a page, you don't have all the space in the world to draw just whatever you want and draw every pose. You have to choose moments in time, which you don't have to do in animation. You have to choose not just a moment in time, but sometimes one panel tells multiple moments in time. You're kind of expecting people to read from left to right in the West, as we do. You kind of go, well, then that should happen first, and this should be the thing on the right side of the panel that is going to have maybe a second or two later, and you can kind of time things out a bit with dialogue too, and lettering. So not having sound and not having timing in the animation sense, where you can just simply add more frames or slow things down and cut, at a later point in the runtime, not having all of that freedom makes me realize and really respect even more so the kind of the discipline of comic artists. But I read the Scott McCloud How to Make Comics, How to Write Comics, those books years ago, before ever planning to make a comic. I just thought they were fascinating reads, and they're brilliant reads, and they're very visually entertaining too. So I think a lot of that kind of stuff was always kind of bubbling under there, and I think it was quite a natural fit to start doing this. But certainly it's been an education so far, and I've got a lot to learn yet. Definitely.
No, but you've been sharing some pages and stuff, updates. I think you're taking to it very well, and I don't say that lightly. I look at comics all the time. It seems like you've got some amazing instincts for how to slightly adjust your style, like, because with animation, it looks like you have to try to simplify the design so that you can focus on expression and emotion and then draw it a million times.
Yeah.
Whereas the comic, definitely, you seem to have added quite a bit more detail and still retain your personality.
I think that exaggeration is a thing that I really love. I love it in animation and in comics in general, and in even live action filmmaking. I think that, elevating reality, doing something that's a little bit outside of what is real and what is completely the kind of mundane, achievable reality that we see every day. I always would want to push things a little bit, and I don't see enough, I think, exaggeration in a lot of comic art today. And even though the cartoony comic art is not my favorite kind of comic art, I mean, I love Neil Adams and I love Katsuhiro Otomo, which I wouldn't consider particularly cartoony.
Right.
I mean, I love Jack Kirby too, but just, you know, people that I don't think of being cartoonists in the strict sense. They have a lot of realism to their work. That's probably my favorite kind of comic book art. But first of all, I'm not that good. I want to be Neil Adams, but I'm not. And secondly, I really want to push exaggeration because I just think it's fun. I think it will make the story funnier because Starbarian Tales Book 1 is a comedy as well as an action adventure story. So having big expressions, having big over-exaggerated physiques is not only funny to me, but it also harkens back to some of my favorite comics. I'm a big early Image Comics and kind of late 80s, early 90s mark. I love all that stuff. I love the Rob Liefeld and the Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane stuff. That's maybe not always the most popular style, especially kind of for nowadays.
Was for its time. It was for its time, and they've stayed relevant. So I totally agree. I grew up with a lot of that stuff too. I think it gets almost too much bad mouth, to be honest. It's like
I agree. Yeah.
What about like your sense of humor? Like what are some of the influences there? Because we've talked now about some of the comic artists that you liked and stuff. What about like the sense of humor? Because obviously, if we're Starbarians, there's a bit of humor to that title. There's a bit of humor to these cartoons.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed comedy. I think that even in really pretty serious storytelling, there should be a little bit of comedy because real life can be funny. I mean, I laugh at something every day, even on kind of downer days. It's something, even if it's gallows humor, that can bring you a laugh or two. For me growing up, I got the Monty Python box set when I was about 8 or 9 from like my dad's friend. I didn't even know what it was. And he said, this will be the best gift you ever get. And it was pretty much the whole season or the whole series on VHS tape, of course, because it was the 90s. Big into Monty Python, huge into The Simpsons as a kid. And I want to say, in a way, I feel like that even held back my drawing a bit. It made me want to do more animation, but for years I just drew kind of Simpsons characters, and I wasn't looking at doing anything much more ambitious than that. But love The Simpsons. South Park, I was not just into South Park, but I really liked a lot of the Trey Parker kind of movies like Cannibal the Musical, and I like sort of a lot of B movies too, and that took me down the MST3K rabbit hole and watching that whole show. So some of those have been, I guess, the big comedic influences.
That's been a fun thing for us to connect on, is just like every once in a while, just like sharing like bad movies and stuff. There's something very entertaining about like a misguided attempt of a movie, like where you can tell that people were trying and just missed the mark. I love it.
Well, I really like that. I love independent filmmaking and independent storytelling. I think it's a shame that so much of the media that we consume are made by corporations nowadays. It's made by Disney or Warner Brothers. And I think that human beings that are more limited in their resources going out there and deciding they're going to make a film, especially if it's like a big effects film or an adventure film, something really ambitious, and not necessarily having the resources, is not only charming, it could be very funny, but to me it's inspiring too, and kind of uplifting to see creatives come from humble places.
I totally get that. You've always been a bit of a fan of internet culture too. You used to like your Chris Chans and your Channel Awesomes and stuff like that, huh?
Oh, I can't tell you how much. I won't talk at great length about Chris Chan, if you don't mind.
No, let's not dwell on that one. It was just a point of reference, but let's not talk about him.
Yeah. I really did. But I will say Channel Awesome did a number on me. I was definitely a consumer of that content in the early years, and it brought me a lot of joy. And I really don't have too much bad to say about those guys. Honestly, I still watch Doug Walker on occasion, and the Angry Video Game Nerd and people like that. But I'd say I've become more discerning these days. I'll watch a Comic Tropes, maybe a Red Letter Media. I've expanded the palette.
Isn't it amazing to see though, how internet shows have evolved? I mean, Red Letter Media, and actually now that we say it, and Angry Video Game Nerd, I also watch a lot, but they've both been around now that I think of it for quite a while. How about yourself? Like you've been making cartoons on and sharing them on multiple platforms, but including YouTube. Like, have you had to adjust anything to like a changing landscape, do you think? Or are you still doing what entertains you first and hoping that the correct audience finds it?
I think that is ultimately what I want to be doing, and
Yeah.
what I try to do, because I do the stuff not because it makes money or it's some great, it's a great sort of business thing. I was offered a job doing some animation directing lately, and I turned it down because ultimately I want to do my comic and I want to make my independent work and not do that. And if you still have to eat and pay bills, and I respect that a lot of people maybe don't have the freedom that I've had with being able to do the independent thing. But that's my goal, is to stay independent. And it has been hard because you've had the algorithms, change on YouTube. There's been a lot more competition over the years, and that is a good thing. I don't shy away
Yeah.
from competition. There's been tremendous increase in the quality and the output of independent animation, and I think now it's probably out competing a lot of stuff on TV. You look at Hell of a Boss and a ton of things, Monkey Wrench. There's a lot of animated series of really, really high quality that are able to put out more work and higher quality work than stuff that I do, and stuff on TV too. So the game has definitely changed, but I'm not in it to compete with anyone. I'm in it because ultimately I want to tell funny stories,
Yeah.
and stories that I find entertaining, and not necessarily always straight comedic things, but sometimes it's action, adventure, and horror. I'm a big fan of. I just want to keep doing it. I'll keep doing it in any way I can. I love comics as a way to, I think, do a lot more than you can do as an independent, say, in animation, and still keep the quality really high. And I don't care really what medium I'm working in, as long as it's visual, and as long as it delights people. I'll keep doing it forever.
What made you decide that you wanted to do Starbarians as a comic instead of just, continue to do more cartoons? Like when did that like light bulb go off that you were like, "Oh, I'm going to do this particular story as a comic"?
Yeah, I think that it had a good shot at reaching an audience, and the need to pay bills is real. I'm sure everyone can respect that. I thought it had a shot at getting funded. I thought it was a good blend of having the kind of macho hero, drama and action stuff that I did honestly want to do. I've not really been able to do a lot of that in animation, and I did want to explore that. But ultimately, I just have a lot of stories and ideas in that universe, and I want to do more in that world. I want to keep telling those stories, and it was just a place to begin. Really, I don't only want to do Starbarian comics. I'd like to do other characters too. But yeah, it was really kind of just throwing a dart at a dartboard and going, all right, well, I guess I'll begin there.
What and like as far as like how fast you can make a comic versus how fast you can make a comic, I mean a cartoon, like are there any big differences, or do you find that there are just different stumbling blocks, or are you like able to do one faster than the other?
I mean, comics are work for sure, and I'm sure anybody that's made a comic will tell you that. I haven't finished my book yet, but 100 pages of detailed comic art that tells a cohesive story that makes sense and is engaging. It's a lot of work, and I don't want to say it's less work than animation, because it's like, how long is a piece of string, but I'll say this: if I take 6 months, I couldn't probably finish a great 5-minute cartoon in 6 months. I'd be happy with quality wise. 5 minutes, what kind of story can you tell in that? It's a short, but it's not going to have a grand story necessarily. But I think in 6 months, I could probably make a really killer 50-page comic book, maybe 60 pages. I'm trying to slowly amp up to being able to do 20 pages a month fairly regularly, but I'm a little ways off that at the moment, still writing and penciling and inking myself. But I can tell a more fleshed out, larger story in a larger world in comics than I can in animation in the same time.
Are you having fun?
Yes, I am having fun. I'm really having fun in a big way.
That's awesome. What else is going on in life aside from like work? You got like any trips planned? You got anything fun going on, or is it just work right now?
I will say there is zero else going on, and I can see the timeline crunching down in front of me, and I'm like, okay, I just actually extended the Indiegogo campaign.
Yeah.
Indiegogo campaigns do have a reputation for being, going on forever and things being delivered late. I didn't do it lightly, but I decided I wanted another couple of months, so we're still shipping this year. but it's going to be September and not May, which was the original estimation back in October. And I do see a lot of work in my future, at least for the next 3.5 months. So there's not really going to be much happening, but that's okay, because if you like the work you do, you know, it can still be a lot of fun and a lot of entertainment. But I want to know about you, actually, Chris.
What do you want to know?
I want to know about your drawing and your comic book art skills, and of course, you've produced comics too, which a lot of your audience may not know about.
Sometimes, not like. Yeah, I mean, I'm mostly doing like, obviously, like videos, like criticism and analysis and stuff. So I don't, you know, what's frustrating, Harry, is I do have a bunch of ideas for things I want to do as comics, but it's like, how do you ever have time to prioritize something like that when, for instance, my bills get paid by making comic tropes episodes? So how can I justify spending time writing, you know, a script or drawing a page? It's so hard to justify that, you know, like every time you do, you're like, okay, like, yes, long term, this could really pay off. You know, this could like maybe make me happy to get this story out. But short term, like, I got to pay the bills, so I got to get something done.
Yeah.
It's so hard. So like, I feel like I've been working at like, whatever is slower than a snail. We'll have to think about that. Like, whatever's slower than a snail is how fast I'm working on my comic.
This is a drunk snail, right?
A drunk snail, yes.
Yeah.
And it's ironic because, of course, that is my next comic, folks. I've been working on this idea for a long time. I think that there is way too much glamorization of the snail community. Great, cool. They have 1 foot. Oh, so cool. Well, they're not all perfect. Some of them are drunkards. And my comic is going to highlight and expose that. I've got a goal. I've got a mission. I'm a sovereign citizen also. And I'm just going to go down some weird path and like reveal that I'm crazy.
You're going to take those snails down a peg or two.
They need to be. Nobody has taken a snail down. Can you think of a single animated snail that comes off looking bad? That's ridiculous.
No. It's time to punch up at snails, I say.
Thank you. It took a while for us to get there, folks, almost 15 minutes. But yes, the main goal here is for Harry and I to take down snails. And after that, there are a lot of other mollusks that I'm going to be...
You're going to work down the mollusk family tree.
Look at this. This character you're drawing, this reminds me of Boom Boom from like X-Men and stuff like that.
Well, she is a fan girl of a certain channel.
Yeah?
And I have not left enough space. It's like those bad, 2024 glasses or whatever you get for New Year's Eve. And it's like, there's no space for the eyes in there. In 2000, you get away with it. 2001, you get away with it, not 2024.
Can you see the other YouTuber that I drew to the side? Can you like tell who I drew?
Is that my all-time favorite character that may or may not wield a magic gun?
That's exactly who I was trying to draw there.
I'm
not really an expert on him, but you know what? I actually, I kind of really respect that Linkara is a guy that's been doing what he does for so long. And I would get burnt out personally if I was only making jokes about comic strips like every week. But you know what? The guy's been doing it for a long time, and I kind of admire that.
There's nothing wrong with Linkara. I watch Linkara pretty regularly, and honestly, there's just a huge repository of videos on his channel, and you can jump in. You can probably find a review or a kind of a critique of almost any comic you can think of, or at least any artist, any creator that may have had a hand in kind of a comic that you like. So there's a lot there, and there's a lot there to enjoy.
So that does make me think of something, though. So we've been talking about Starbarian Tales a bunch, but you do have another animated project you did that's comic book related, and that I know you would love to do as like a live action piece at some point. Can you tell us anything about where Trilby Dogtooth is, and maybe just explain what that is first for anybody that hasn't watched it yet?
It's very obscure because there's really only one cartoon that exists right now. It's about 6 minutes long. Trilby Dogtooth is an idea that I had for many, many years, and it's an amateur monster hunter who essentially writes autobiographical comics about his own adventures, which to him are guidebooks for dealing with monsters. That's kind of how he
love that
justifies it to himself. These are guidebooks for leaving around town. It looks like a comic. You kind of ignore it if you see it in the street. But if you pick it up, or if you recognize the monster on the cover because you've seen that monster in your alleyway and it's been eating your garbage for the last 6 months, you might pick that comic up and you find, a solution to dealing with that monster. It's actually something that I've wanted to turn into either a longer format story or a series of shorts. I have both shorts and a feature length story written in script format anyway. And it's something I've really wanted to do for a long time. But animation is hugely expensive, either in labor or in paying for labor. So, time or money, it's going to cost a lot there. And I feel like because of the natural connection that Dogtooth has with comics, being a comic illustrator and using comics as a story device, I think it would work great in comics. But my first love really is film and animation still, and I love that, and I don't want to let go of it. So I'd still pursue doing it in that format, and I'll keep I'll keep waving a flag for it. And
I
maybe
love
in the next year or two.
Trilby Dogtooth. I think the premise is fantastic. That this he is really a monster hunter. He's not necessarily good at it, but I love his logic of making guidebooks as comics, because that's just what he happens to know. I think that is one of your prettiest animations lately. It's really lovely, and just the premise is fantastic for world building. You could go so many places with it. I like that you created new monsters for it. It wasn't just a vampire or a werewolf or something like that. It was
great. The idea is that those monsters do exist in his world, but those are the effective monsters that had to be eradicated, and he's left with the non-effective, useless monsters that are so kind of unimportant or unintrusive into people's lives that they can remain hidden forever.
I love that. And then at some point, if it really did well, you'd like to do that as live action, right?
I think it would work very well in live action. Kind of
so too.
An Evil Dead. I had a dream, as sounds a bit metaphysical and silly, but I had a dream as a teenager. I was walking around a bookshop and I saw an Evil Dead, an Evil Dead movie that I didn't actually recognize. It was like Ash versus a werewolf, and then there was one next to it. It was like Ash versus Frankenstein and Ash versus the Mummy or the Creature of the Black Lagoon. I remember thinking, why? I woke up out of that dream and I thought, why hasn't someone made that as a series of films? I'm sure there are things that exist in that vein, but kind of a fun, comedic, superhero-esque adventure series where it's a person versus a different kind of monster of the week, but I guess it would be monster of the movie or monster of the serial kind of thing. I thought that I'm sure they were trying to do that with both the old and the more recent Van Helsing efforts, so it's not a hugely original idea, but it certainly appeals to me.
And you did do this amazing blend of animation and live action and stuff the other year with your parody of the original Resident Evil, and really just Resident Evil in general. That thing was amazing. How long did that video take?
Well, thanks very much, Chris. Ghostbleed is it's like a love letter to the old survival horror and adventure games on the PS1, like Silent Hill, Resident Evil, a little bit of Metal Gear Solid thrown in. That took a short period of time. I didn't do the animation on that. That's done by a genius called David Post, aka Lullaby, who's also, you see him in live action in the video. He's the live action Kriegshauser in the intro.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's David. He did the animation, the modeling, the motion capture, the texturing for all the 3D, but I created hand-drawn animatics basically, and the script, and I was the director and writer of Ghostbleed. But yeah, it's very nice anytime somebody pulls out Ghostbleed.
I love Ghostbleed. I think it's hilarious. I think it's so incredible. Because folks, it blends live action, it blends animation that's done in the style of original PS1. So there's just parody on so many different levels, satirizing the gameplay, the animation style, the storytelling. I don't know. One of my favorites. I love it. I definitely recommend folks look up Ghostbleed if they haven't. If I have to imagine that was a time-consuming project, but if you want to do more of that, I will support that Indiegogo any day.
Oh, thanks very much. I mean, a lot of people said it would be great if it was really a game because it's an
Yeah.
homage to video games, but I'm not a game programmer, so that would have to be entirely outsourced, or it would be very non-functional. I'm planning maybe this year, maybe the next year, another short film that hybrids animation and live action together, and I think in a way that I've not really seen before. But that's something that maybe could have come sooner if the Indiegogo campaign had blown up. But it's doing very well, and I'm very happy with how the Starbarian Tales Indiegogo comic, both the comic is coming together.
I'm
and
happy
also
for you too, and I hope
performed.
like I of course supported it, no question. But like I really hope that some of my audience here that maybe had somehow missed it consider checking it out. I'll put the link in both the description and. Well, I guess I don't have a way to like show it in draw pile right now. But if you look up Starbarian Tales on Indiegogo, you're going to find it, and you can still buy in, folks. That's something Harry's says he's like got many pages done already. He's been showing his updates, and yeah, like this year it looks like we'll get some more Starbarians, but this time in Pog form. No, this time in comic book form.
I should have done Pogs. How did I miss that? That would have been so much better.
No, it was definitely a huge oversight on your part. I think you lost a lot of potential. You left a lot of money on the table with that one.
Oh yeah, big time.
I didn't know what I was drawing. It ended up being sort of a Shrek, and we'll just have him saying Shrek is love. Shrek is love, Shrek is life. Anything else you've got coming up that like the folks out there should know about?
Well, you didn't let me finish earlier. I did want to know about potential ideas that maybe you had for comics or what we could see. And I did want to say, of course, your point was very well made about maybe not having the finances and the resources and time to make a comic. But I will say Indiegogo, or Kickstarter or any of the crowdfunding platforms, they do offer a huge help in that you can have something funded in advance and not the in the aftermarket, which of course puts the consumer at risk, but it also puts the creator, I think, in a great position. I'm laughing at what I think and I hope is a Mickey Mouse head here. Oh no, it's something else. That's good. But no, I don't really have anything else to sell people.
Yeah,
I would say
more. Like, there's a couple ideas that I have that I would do. I think the biggest thing that is I need just a little time to like fine tune a script. I think I'd like to focus my efforts on like just revising a script I had for a werewolf story, where basically like because I don't think there's that many good werewolf stories, even though I like werewolves. My idea was almost sort of like a Assault on Precinct 13 type story that just happens to like the cops in a very like sort of remote like hick town have arrested a guy who they don't realize is a werewolf, and so when they don't let him out of like the drunk tank that night, his clan just sort of assaults this remote like police station, and all the prisoners and the employees and the cops have to try to just survive the night against werewolves trying to get into the little police station.
I'm always up for a really good werewolf story. That sounds great.
I think I would really like to do that. So if I just I think you're right that crowdfunding opens up a lot of options. I could like if I could just get that script revised, then I can like hire an artist and probably I think that crowdfunding would be an interesting way to go. Let's see what we created here. Oh, holy crap. I didn't see that you were doing this super detailed raccoon up here.
No, that's not me. What is that?
Who is that?
That's not me. It looks automated. Like that's not a human hand doing that.
Oh my God. Is that like some sort of AI thing?
I think it's just a recording, but I have no idea why a recording is playing unless...
I've never used Drawpile before, so I have no idea. I'm just like zooming out so that I could see what we drew. And all of a sudden, folks, there's just this raccoon being drawn by somebody with the name Raccoon.
Okay. Let's just get
You're right, it does look like a recording.
Yeah, let's get a nice big net over here to catch this thing.
What the heck is going on there?
I don't know that I don't know if you've been hacked or or what, Chris.
This is hilarious. It's pretty well done.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I love what you're doing there, Harry. Wait, did the person stop drawing? That might no, it's still going. And I'll just sort of create a big mouth here that it's about to drop into.
Yeah, here we go. We've got like a Hanna-Barbera cartoon going on, starring this raccoon now.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. He's doomed.
This guy's effed.
Okay, we're gonna stick a Molotov cocktail, just throw an ad into.
And your guy is farting.
Well, there we go.
So I've oh no. What? Oh no, rocket with 2 T's. Okay. I get. You know what? I don't think we're going to top that. I think that that's as good a place to wrap things up as any. Plus, we're dealing with different time zones, so it's much later for Harry than us. We should let him have his soup. So, folks, I definitely recommend you check out Harry's Indiegogo, Starbarian Tales, 100 pages of Starbarian action. How can you beat that? So I'll have the link in the description. Harry, thanks for just jumping in for such a casual encounter interview, just drawing session. I don't know what to call it, but I really appreciate you giving us some time. I'm excited to see what you make next, man.
You are super welcome, Chris. I'm such a fan of everything you do. I love the Comic Tropes channel. I love your streams and your interviews. I'm proud and I'm happy to call you my friend. Thanks for bringing me aboard today. And anytime, it was my honor.
Awesome. Thank you, Harry. Yeah. How about that? I have no idea what was going on with that raccoon, folks. I started a private session between Harry and I. I thought I would have to share that link for anyone else to know it even existed. It was hosted on my computer. I have no idea what was going on there. So that was a very strange little bit at the end, but it cracked me up. If you haven't seen it, look up Starbarian Tales on Indiegogo, and you can still buy a copy of Harry's comic. He's been posting tons of pages. He's got a lot of the work done, and looks like it'll be 100-page comic. It looks so good. I'm so happy to have supported it, and it's always fun to chat with Harry. He's just a really incredible artist. He draws so fast, so confidently, and he'll be self-deprecating and self-effacing, but he's very talented. He's very talented. I'm gonna move over to the news next. Let me just bring up my document. Thank you, Davenport. It was fun interview to do, that's for sure. There we go. There's my big face. How am I doing that pose? I don't know. I was trying to replicate it. We've got a lot of news, though, and it'll be interesting stuff to riff on together. So we've got this. Coca-Cola teams with Marvel. I love supporting big business. Anytime you can get me to talk about a big brand like Coca-Cola or Disney and not pay me anything for it, oh my God, that's what makes my day. That's what makes my day. But no, they've teamed up, and even though it's like all big business and stuff, I have to admit I kind of like the creativity on display here, so that's why I'm talking about it. So basically, Coca-Cola is collaborating with Marvel right now. They've got a TV commercial, they've got digital collectibles, who cares about that really, and an augmented reality experience. Specifically, they've got a line of scannable Coca-Cola cans and zero sugar ones. They've got more than 30 Marvel characters featured on them. This is just sort of an example of what that looks like. They're out there. And if you scan the little code that they have, you can sort of see an augmented reality animation of the characters. And the campaign, I guess, has prizes. you could randomly win something like a Disney Plus subscription or a Disney cruise experience. Someone will win it. Why not one of you guys? Here's just a moment from, for instance, this new commercial, which takes place in a comic book store. I kind of like that. And, it's a really hot day, but the comic book characters come to life. They jump out of the comics and start helping her. This is Daredevil, but the full ad has, Juggernaut and Colossus and Black Widow and Deadpool, a bunch of them. So I thought that was kind of cute in its own way. Moving on, though. Marvel dropped a bunch of details on the upcoming X-Men stuff. Let me just see this. What movies will Jim and I be doing? I mean, we only really decide, sort of one episode ahead of whatever you guys have seen. So the next one, Jim and I won't say the specific movies. I'll let that be a little bit of a surprise. But we each sort of decided on doing sort of sci-fi apocalyptic movies, cheesy B movies. So that's what will happen next. But thank you very much for everybody that's been watching Trash Movie Bonanza on this channel. Jim and I are having a fantastic time talking about weird movies. So thank you for asking. Mac and me, who knows, maybe. We talked in the past about 3 of the X-Men titles, but there's of course many X-Men related titles. For instance, X-Force. So we got some details this week on that one. And here's the new team for that, which a little unexpected, although I guess it makes sense. Yes, to the folks asking in there, you could always send DVDs to the P.O. Box. I mean, that will come to me. Jim lives in another state, so that's why we do it online. It's a little tricky, to only give it to one of us. It needs to be something we can both see. But anyway, there's a lot that we want to talk about. There's a lot. Let's talk about X-Force. But I sincerely appreciate the interest in Trash Movie Bonanza. We've been having a blast doing it. So yeah, look, the team, Forge. I wasn't expecting Forge to be on a team. And we've also got Rachel Summers. We've got Betsy Braddock. We've got Sage, Surge, Tank, and Deadpool. Well, Deadpool's been a part of X-Force a couple times, so that sort of makes sense. But basically, this is going to be led by Forge. Forge is going to gather a team for off-the-books missions and threats to the Earth, and they'll include specialized guests depending on what that mission is. For instance, the first story arc, he'll need to recruit Deadpool. But I don't think Deadpool is going to be an ongoing character. We'll see. But, Forge's power is to be able to sort of invent anything. And I guess in this, we're sort of taking the premise that he sees problems in the world, so he's inventing a team that can specifically solve that problem. An interesting idea. It's written by Jeffrey Thorne, art by Marcus Toe. Not super familiar with either of them, but the idea of Forge leading is one that interests me a little bit. There's a lot that we don't know about Forge, to be honest. We don't even know his real name. We know he was friends with Professor X. We know he's Native American. We know about the modern stuff, like his relationship with Storm, that he, served in the military and lost his leg and built himself a bionic one. But we don't really know a whole lot about his background. So it could be interesting as a character to explore. We'll see. Oh, and this one launches July 31st. So we will see what the next one is. The next book that they gave us details on is Phoenix. And this is going to be written by Stephanie Phillips. She's been writing stuff like Spider-Gwen. Artist Alessandro Miracolo, who did White Widow fairly recently. And the book is going to follow Jean Grey. She's, again, the host of the Phoenix Force, but it's going to be a cosmic book. She's going to follow a distress signal from Nova to the edge of a black hole where hundreds of lives hang in the balance. Wasn't expecting that. That's an interesting angle to take. X-Men has had plenty of cosmic stuff. We've got Lilandra and the Shi'ar, Imperium. We've had The Brood. So we've definitely had space-based stories. It's not always the main focus, but that might be a good way to potentially explore the character of Jean Grey, is to put her in a different context. We'll see. That one comes out July 17th. Okay, some people seem to like that. That's could be good. Could be good. Yeah, I like the idea that, like, if she's going to be the Phoenix Force, that should be a space-based thing, and you should be dealing with cosmic characters like Nova and maybe Adam Warlock or the Guardians of the Galaxy, Silver Surfer. Those are the kind of characters that should interact. They sort of operate on a different scale than fighting Paste Pot Pete the bank robber. Oh, and that's not the last you'll hear of Paste Pot Pete tonight, folks. There is a brand new comic that features Paste Pot Pete. Was that made specifically for me? It felt like it. We'll get to that. Let's see. And finally, as far as new mutant stuff, see what I did there? We are talking about sort of some New Mutants. There's a new version of NYX. And again, it does have, Laura, X-23, Wolverine these days. But it has some other mutants I wasn't expecting. So this is going to be young mutants living in New York. It's Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan. All right, well, if you're going to make her a mutant, go for it. Yes, put her with these characters. Wolverine, Stephanie Cuckoo, Prodigy, and Anol. Is it Anol or Anol? I don't know how to pronounce that word. Sorry. It sounds offensive the way I say it. I'm doing my best. Her family's still in Jersey City. I think this might be like something like either going to college or getting a job, just over the river. We'll see. Yeah, that is interesting too. You're right. Yeah, just one of the cuckoos. Stephanie has several sisters. You know what? But we've pretty much always seen them as a group. So the idea of taking one and developing her as her own character, that's not bad. There's a couple ideas. There's a couple ideas that could be good. I like this cover by what is it? Sarah Pacelli. She's not the ongoing artist, but Sarah Pacelli did this cover. She's a good artist. The writing duo for this book is Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing. They're kind of Marvel's go-to power team these days. Artist Francesco Mortarino. Oh my God, is the comics industry just grabbing everybody from Italy right now? It's wild. And that comes out July 24th. Should have made this font bigger. Sorry, everyone. We'll see. Let's talk about this. I mean, a little sad, but I kind of want to frame this within the context of just honoring a legend. Trina Robbins, a very influential person within comics for a very long time. I'm going to just mention some of the highlights because she did pass away. So she's been an artist, an editor, a writer, a publisher, a historian, has just about done every role you could have in comics. She passed away at age 85. She's survived by her daughter, Casey, and her partner. A lot of people will know him, Steve Lealoha. Great artist in his own right. A lot of people will know him. I've always thought he's a really solid inker when he does inking. I think he does a great job on that stuff. But he's also been an artist, Marvel, done a lot of stuff. Yeah, that's true. Yep. Sorry, I was going to highlight this. Trina Robbins was more of a clothes designer before she got into comics. She, I believe, may have designed some of the outfits for the Mamas and the Papas at the tail of the 60s, somewhere around there. Had an interesting sort of life when she was young before breaking into comics. One of the first things she did was sort of like in transitioning from like clothes to comics, she actually designed that iconic Vampirella costume. That's a pretty memorable costume, obviously, but she designed that for Frank Frazetta to first paint. So That's one of her first credits in comics. 1969, she did that. In 1970, she published It Ain't Me, Babe. She published women's comics. These were examples of early underground comics. You know, this is when people like Crumb and Harvey Picard and people like that started doing their own underground comics. But Trina Robbins was definitely an early pioneer of underground comics, that whole scene. Yup, she did. She designed that tiny, famous red, bathing suit with the collar and everything. Yeah, that's Trina Robbins, man. American Splendor. Love it. Love it. Oh, cool. You got to meet her. I chatted with her about appearing in the Crumb documentary and Al Cap documentary with Spain Rodriguez. She called Cap an idiot. Okay, well, she was always upfront about her opinions. This is one that'll blow your mind. She was the first first female artist to draw Wonder Woman, and that came out in 1986. Yeah, believe it or not, DC had not had a female artist on the Wonder Woman title. That's what I'm talking about, because obviously, like Ramona Fradon, for instance, just one person. She did draw Wonder Woman, but within the context of like the Super Friends comics, you know what I mean? Or a guest star in something else. Yeah. Trina Robbins was the first female artist that they had do a Wonder Woman comic, but it wasn't until 1986. It was like a 4-issue run with Trina and writer Kurt Busiek, one of his early books, Kurt Busiek. So just wild to me that it took them that long to be like, oh, maybe we should have, like a female artist work on our most famous female character. It's like, at least once do that, just see what happens. But anyway, yeah, I don't know why it took them that long. I don't know. It's wild to me. Because there were, some really talented female artists long before the 80s. For instance, why didn't Ramona Fradon get the Wonder Woman title for a while? I don't know. Why didn't they hire somebody from like the Golden Age? I don't know. I could go down a rabbit hole talking about them all, but that was, yes, this was right around the time of, Crisis, but this was just sort of its own story, basically. It wasn't really part of the reboot. That was George Perez got to reboot Wonder Woman, and he did a great job. He really did. But, yeah. So, just something crazy to think about. So, it is sad that she's gone, but maybe I guess I've got a guest star. Hey, Jack, you want to come here? You want to come here? Sorry that he decided to interrupt something so serious. Yes, what would you like to talk? I don't know what you want. I have no idea what that means. Hey. I'm going to talk in a gentle voice and see if he comes over here. Hey, you want to come here? Oh, both kitties down here now. Hello, Lily. All right. Sorry, my cats are being a little animated. He's so squeaky, Chrissy. Yes, I think that this is basically when they're trying to tell me that they want food, and I'm always doing the show. So whatever. It's streaming time. That's what he's saying. Yeah. He just wanted my attention, and then as soon as I talked to him, he quieted down a bit. So that's kind of funny. But he doesn't want to come over here and get held. He wants to be independent right now. Moving on. This is a little interesting to me anyway. Joe Matt passed away not too long ago, but one of his comics is going to be released posthumously. So Fantagraphics announced that they're going to publish Peep Show number 15. That's going to be both the latest and, of course, the final issue of the series by the late Joe Matt. He did humorous comics, but always about himself. Super self-centered. Sometimes offensive, depending on what you find too personal. I mean, look at the cover. So anyway, they described this issue as this. Matt's move from Toronto to Los Angeles in 2003 and his subsequent struggles, portrayed with his characteristic blend of self-deprecation and introspection. It's utterly shameless, completely self-absorbed, crafted with an exhibitionist's enthusiasm for his favorite subject, himself. This is going to come out July 17th. And yeah, you may have noticed, talking about his life all the way back in 2003, Joe Matt was a cartoonist, but he was slow, man. To be clear, the last issue he made was published back in 2006, and artist Chester Brown actually stepped in to ink the final 4 pages that Joe had laid out but not finished, so that this issue could be completed. We will see. No, not Joe Madureira. Joe Mad, got it. Yeah, very different artist. Very different. Very different. But that's an indie thing, but I like indie and I like mainstream. I like all sorts of comics. I love this. I've made an episode before talking about how much I love Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. He's just an absolute master. We are so lucky that he is still around. Just one of the all-time best technical artists. So talented. He's done so many amazing things for DC. Well, they are going to use some of his artwork that has never been officially published for the reading public, but actually did exist going way back. Way back. They're going to use some of his art for some variant covers. I love this idea. So they're calling this, part of their artist spotlight variant covers, and they are variant covers. So you might need to, talk to your comic book shop if you want to try to snag one of these. These are going to come out in July. What they're going to do is they take his designs that he was hired by DC to do for this humongous DC Comics style guide, and that was shared with all of their official licensees. I think back in the 70s, it might have been the 80s. It's been a while. Oh, sorry, it was commissioned in 82. That's right. I knew I talked about it in my episode, but it's been a while since I thought about it. In 82, basically, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez drew pretty much all of their characters with like turnarounds and stuff, so that there was a consistent style for all of their characters, that they would look consistent if, a licensee for Underoos needed to make their own original art. Well, this is what they'd base it on instead of just looking at any random comic. So it was designed for consistency, but it's gorgeous work. Here are the covers that will get JLGL's artwork. Batman number 150, Green Arrow number 14, Green Lantern 13, Shazam 13, Superman 16, Flash 11, and Wonder Woman 11. So those are the ones they're going to use his character turnaround designs. They'll all sort of be these same 3 poses, but for each of the characters, so that you can see how they should look. But I think that they've done a really nice job with not just using his artwork, but then like some really nice background colors to sort of frame it properly. I like it. Right. Superpowers was one of the licensees that used it. No question. I can't imagine what the pressure would be like, but supposedly Garcia Lopez is like really confident and fast when he decides to do work. So, I think he's just like, fine, you're hiring me because this is how I draw. Done. Just sort of regular variants from what I can read. I don't think that they're going to be like super rare, but they're going to be published in less copies than the main cover. So it depends how big a fan you are, but you may want to try to snag one or two, and that's why I'm putting it on people's radar right now. Again, this is for July. I mean, the pressure back then. I think that's what we were talking about. You inked a Garcia Lopez page, like for publication? That would be a privilege. Just an amazing artist. One of my favorites. Very underrated, in my opinion. I think that like artists respect him. I don't think the mainstream reading public always are familiar with his name. And some of that is just because of, when he was making his name was mostly in the 80s, and there was no internet or anything. So, people knew who the artists were, and they would see them at conventions. They weren't as obscure as they were in the golden age, but they still weren't as approachable and easy to learn about as an artist today. Oh yeah, I know. Atari Force. You would think like, a comic based on a video game console, but it's got some gorgeous art in it. It's really, really pretty. Moving on. Is Mark Millar going to make public domain Superman comics? It looks like it. So let me lay this story out. Back in 2022, Mark Millar had tweeted this: "It might take me a year or two to get ahead on my schedule, but I'm 100% going to do another Superman story at some point. I've had a notebook I've been noodling in for quite a while now." Obviously, Millar's primarily busy with his own comics, and those are all through Dark Horse. A lot of them are getting adapted into shows and movies. So, he probably has to produce a certain amount. He probably can only do a limited amount, but he said that he wanted to do a Superman story. Okay, moving forward. Earlier this year on his podcast, this was when he was talking to Jeff Johns, Mark Millar said, "I'm under contract, so I have to do a certain amount of stuff, but I'm definitely going to get a little carve out at the end of next year, and I've talked with the DC guys. I'm going to do like a 6-issue thing," talking about his Superman idea. But then on Sunday, he posted this to Twitter, and I don't know how well you can see this, but I'll read it to you. He says, "I'd been thinking about writing a Superman story late summer, but Superman goes public domain in 9 years. So I can write my stories in 5 years' time and pay the best artists in the industry to draw them, so it's all banked and ready for me to publish myself in 2033. I wonder if he's serious about that. Yes, you could do that. 9 years is still a ways away. Also, you'd only have access to the concepts that were introduced in Action Comics #1 at that point. So, no flying, no heat vision or super hearing, things like that. He was basically just strong back then. So I don't know, that sort of limits you. Maybe at that point, why bother using the Superman name? And of course, you couldn't use that as the title. You could call the character that, but the title is still a registered trademark. So, we'll see. The things some people are speculating about, from an article on Bleeding Cool to people on, social media, is he may be trying to sort of negotiate publicly, show that he's prepared to take some steps to do this story, himself, and then maybe that'll sweeten a deal that DC might be willing to offer, saying like, hey, instead of having you, compete with us, we could get like a top tier name and artist. So, okay, we'll pay you a little bit more than we normally would. I don't know. We'll see. It's, if that's what he wants to do, that's fine. 9 years is a long time to develop something like that. I feel like if you've got this story in mind, why not do it at DC? But maybe it doesn't make sense. I don't know. I guess that's possible. That you're right. It's possible he could have already pitched it to DC and they didn't want to do it, but it just doesn't seem. I don't know if that seems likely. We'll see. It's an interesting. I don't know the story. I guess this is all just speculation ultimately. Would you rather live in Hogwarts or Middle Earth? Oh my goodness. I feel like Middle Earth, when we talk about Middle Earth, is pretty much going through war, and that I'd probably be more likely to survive in Hogwarts, where there's at least teachers to defend me. So I guess I'll take Hogwarts. I feel like I'm more likely to survive there. Interesting question. this is another one that like Bleeding Cool has broken some news on, but we don't really know that much, other than Scott Snyder is somehow involved in something called Absolute Comics at DC. Let me break down what they're reporting on. So they reported that they've heard Scott Snyder is sort of lightly overseeing, as in he's not necessarily an editor, but maybe he's like got a hand in picking the talent or something like that, or just like some of the big ideas that would be used. But he's going to somehow be involved with a new DC line of comics that's aimed at getting the top tier talent in the industry and letting them do whatever they want with the characters. Probably within reason, doesn't want to make them bad. So it's sort of, I don't know how to describe it other than, there have been things in the past like Marvel's Ultimate line, DC's All-Star Comics, sort of a sub line where it's its own thing. However, this is not like a reboot of all the main comics, okay? They're going to keep doing those. It's also not necessarily, well, I'll get to that. Like, first of all, they're saying that like when this will launch, and nothing's been officially confirmed by DC or Scott Snyder. Just keep that in mind. I'm going off of what Bleeding Cool has reported. But it's supposedly going to launch sometime after this summer's event, and that's the Absolute Power, overseen by Mark Waid. Something to do with Amanda Waller. But like the idea would be that it wouldn't be based on like tons of continuity, like Ultimate Comics at least had its own continuity, right, between X-Men and Fantastic Four and Spider-Man. That wouldn't be the point of this. The point of this would be to let people do their own stories, kind of like Morrison and Quitely did All-Star Superman, while at the same time Frank Miller and Jim Lee were doing their own thing with Batman, but it wasn't crossing over. So I'd just be curious, like if what we're hearing is accurate, are there any creators that you would want to see re-envision a specific character? I'd be curious if there's anything that like people are going to come up with the same ideas. I'd love to just sort of play in that sandbox. Who wouldn't? I think it would be fun to like, reimagine some of these characters in today's day and age. Take, I don't know, somebody like the original Adam wasn't even a shrinking guy, right? He was just a short, strong guy. What if he was just, a modern day MMA fighter, or a Wildcat for that matter, like an MMA fighter that decides to be a superhero. Got a guest again. Or what if you did Batman, but maybe he still does have a living relative? Like, would that be different enough to look into? Maybe just give him like Aunt Harriet from the 60s TV show, or maybe like either his dad or his mom survived. Like, that would be something different to do with the character. So I think that would be interesting. I think that would be really interesting. Sure, Snyder and Capullo on Batman again. That they did a great job. I'm sure they could again, but I would like to see some new stuff. Oh, James Stokoe on Green Lantern. That's a fun idea. He's a really cool, distinct artist, so I like that. Yeah, technically, but I guess I'm talking about like a direct relative that would like still live in the mansion and be aware of what's going on, kind of like Alfred is. I'm just riffing. It's not that important, but what if you did like a Superman that, wasn't necessarily quite as godly, but still had like all the same powers, just not quite on the same level? I don't know. There's all sorts of like things you could do. Yeah, Metamorpho is totally due for, getting envisioned by a really unique creator. That would be great. Daniel Warren Johnson on Superman, sure. I mean, just since you mentioned that again, Daniel Warren Johnson's Wonder Woman, Dead Earth, that was a fantastic story. James Tynan on Agents of Shade. Now that's the kind of out the box thinking I'm talking about, like where you've got an idea for a specific creator and a less looked at title. That's really cool. Ram V on Martian Manhunter. Yeah, the outsider superhero that wants to do good. I like that. Wow. That's really fun. Oh, thank you for the super chat. I'm rich. Bruce Wayne, but he works in waste management. There's my cheeky Sopranos reference. Okay. Wonder Woman is a pre-K teacher and Superman as a slacker. Well, that's so different that I almost wonder if you should even bother using the character. But who knows? Maybe. You know, like you could, at this point, you can sort of come up with so many ideas that are a little referential to what's gone before, but it's your own idea. But I think it would be fun to like just sort of let a creator go nuts on some of these. Sophie Campbell on Wonder Woman, sure. Tom King on Martian Manhunter, as long as it's 8 to 12 issues. Oh, I can't wait to talk about it. Yeah, that's one of the best books that came out this week, so I will be talking about it in a while. I will. Charles Burns on Swamp Thing. What an interesting idea. Who knows, you know, if he'd want to do something like that, but I think his style would look fantastic on such an organic creature. Wow. Red Tornado is a professional farter. Definitely would get a lot of likes, yes. Darren Aronofsky's script, sure. Anyway, yeah, you guys are going nuts, but I like it. Some interesting ideas. We'll have to see where this goes. We need to learn more. Oh my God, Jeff Darrow on anything, but sure, Jeff Darrow, Batman's run. I'll take that. He's so good at action. Yeah. Chris Bachalo on Shade the Changing. Didn't he do that? I don't remember, but that sounds like something he did. Jim Lee is doing commissions again, and the prices are definitely getting folks talking. But you know what? It might make sense. So for the first time in 15 years, Jim Lee is opening up his commissions. He's taking commissions through his agent, Albert Moy. Albert Moy also sells a lot of original art for artists. He's got a website, usually at a lot of conventions. But anyway, yes, Jim Lee is going to take some commissions. Now, here's an example of what it costs. There are different sizes and different like details and stuff. But for 11 by 17, you know, basically regular comic board, full figure, one character with limited backgrounds, $20,000. If one character or extra backgrounds or recreation of other covers not drawn by Jim, those will be $25,000 to $35,000. A lot of money, obviously, way more than the average thing. However, that's a lot, but does this make sense considering that there's a market for it? Certainly, we've seen that, like, you know, on the secondary market, pieces by guys like Jim Lee go for a lot on, you know, eBay, for instance. And then again, also, if he's going to do this, what is Jim Lee's time worth right now, seeing as how he's the head of DC Comics? You know, like that's a lot of responsibility that he has to keep a company running, and he must get compensated well for it, versus how many hours does it take him to draw? You know, like he has to value his own time. I think it makes some sense. I think that the prices do make sense. I could never afford it. I'd never even think about it. It's going to be for like a pretty small market of people, but also, just to be clear, even though he's opening up commissions, he's not going to take, they say, he's not going to take every single one that's proposed. He will pick and choose which ones he wants to do. And on top of that, they're not going to mail any of these out. You have to be available to pick it up at one of the conventions that Jim Lee is appearing at, and the art will be there. So there's some sort of like rules to it. But I mean, the guy hasn't done a commission for like 15 years. So it's a pretty rare opportunity. I'm curious what you guys think. Do you think that this is too much? Do you think that this makes sense? Do you think that he should charge more? Why would DC be okay with this? You're still allowed to do what you want in your free time. And what are they going to like say just because you drew Hellboy or the X-Men that we're going to like let you go. Like that doesn't help them as a business. Wouldn't it be nice to do a few pieces and be well off for the whole year? Oh my God, yes. I mean, this is, look, now that I'm thinking it through, EJ, he's probably doing fine, but he probably has some kids that are getting ready for stuff like college. If he can do like a small handful of these commissions, you know, like basically a day's hard work could put his kid through at least half a year, if not a year, of college. Give you 2? Congrats on being in such rarefied company. That's amazing. You say that that's reasonable. I think a guy who's supposed to be running a company shouldn't have time for this. It's not like he's doing it during work hours. I mean, obviously, if he took this and then he wasn't fulfilling his duties, they would fire him. But he's got like his evenings and his weekends and his vacation time. And if he wants to use that time to draw, I think it's reasonable. Yeah, 9 kids. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I should have mentioned that. Jim Lee has a bunch of kids. So you can be really wealthy and still want to be like, you know what? Maybe it makes sense to just take a little extra work. Oh, and I can understand that. I'm not necessarily even talking about how much any of us are a fan of Jim Lee specifically, so much as I think we have to acknowledge that he's a very popular artist and very, you know, he's got 10 kids. I thought it was 9, but yeah. He could get a yacht if he really wanted to, but then you have to like probably keep drawing so that you can afford to maintain it, right? Maybe he'll just do them during his Twitch streams. Exactly. He can fit it in. Let's see. I defend his prices, but here I am going on to Fiverr when I want to do commission art. I'll never be able to afford him. I would never either. I could team up with like 5 friends and I couldn't afford something like this. He does draw very fast. He does. But you know what? You don't get that fast without you've earned that, like that talent. I'll say that. No, executives are definitely not paid hourly, but you can take your annual salary on average and break down how many hours you work to like get a rough idea of what your time is worth. Yeah. I ultimately feel like these prices are reasonable because let's just suppose he instead was saying like for the same thing, instead of $20,000, it was $1,000. Do any of you think that piece would not be flipped for something like $20,000? Basically, there's a market of what something is going to go for. And the artist is screwing themselves over if they don't charge that sort of top price. All that means is that they're selling it for less and giving that profit to whoever's buying from them. My friend Tony Moore used to sell his original art from stuff like Battle Pope and the early Walking Dead for, you know, something wild, like we'll say $100 a page. But Walking Dead took off, and those were quickly going for thousands of dollars on the secondary market. So he raised his prices, and that makes sense. Like that is money that you know you can justify. It's the market. I'm going to see the legendary Bruce Springsteen on Thursday. Any cool concerts upcoming for anybody, or best concert you went to? No concerts for me coming up. As far as best, that is a good question. I would say that one that, like, honestly, I had a lot of fun at was seeing this band called the Cybertronic Spree. They dress up in these really elaborate Transformers costumes and sing songs from both like just 80s hits and movie hits and Transformers, the movie songs. That was pretty fun. But also I had a great time in like 95, I want to say, 1995. I went to see Pearl Jam, and they were good, but I really enjoyed the Ramones. The Ramones opened for them, and that was a really good show. So that was fun. Oh, cool. A bunch of you know who the Cybertronic Spree is. They're fun. They're really cool. So I had that was a good show. That was really fun for me. Fun question. Thank you. And thanks for the super chat, Steve. I appreciate the support. Couple more pieces of news. The Spawnmobile went to auction. Speaking of Image founding fathers, we'll go from Jim Lee to Todd McFarlane. There it is, folks. The Spawnmobile. If you don't know, basically, Todd put it up for auction on Whatnot this week, and as well as its trailer, so that you can transport it, and it's sold. The vehicle was originally taken to conventions in the 90s. It was a prop, but it was a functional car at the time. It did receive a McFarlane Toys version for, like, you know, Spawn toy size. I got a Hot Wheels version. That's pretty cool. The winning bid, $19,850 plus shipping for the funny car. I feel like that's fairly reasonable for a one-of-a-kind car. I wouldn't pay it. I wouldn't pay it just because of the rest of what I've got to talk about. So, like, basically, it was noted the car is not running right now. It hasn't been used in a long time. Like, they've just had it, like, you know, in the trailer. You can see that the trailer even, like, you know, like the colors all flaked off of the trailer and stuff. It's not street legal, so it's not something that you can just drive down the street. You know, you can get it running, but it would be to, like, you know, just sort of taking a trailer to, say, a parking lot or a private, like, racetrack or something like that. It also, the tires right now don't hold air, so the tires would need to be replaced. He sold it to buy a Jim Lee commission. Yup. I think that the price is reasonable for a one-of-a-kind car if you are a big fan. It is pretty unique. Inside, it's got, you know, unique details, like the seat is shaped sort of like a coffin, and the steering wheel, or maybe it was, actually, I think it was like the gear to put it into drive and stuff was like a bone hand. So there was some fun stuff there. My favorite comic vehicle, not just like sci-fi or movies or fictional, just my favorite comic book vehicle, I think I'd have to go with the Batmobile. It's had many different versions, but I think I'd go with the Batmobile. It's pretty iconic. How much is it to haul it? Well, it comes with the trailer. Again, like, it's sold with the trailer. So, you know, as long as you've got something that can, like, tow, I have to imagine this is, you know, as long as you've got something that could tow 5,000 pounds, you're probably good to go. I don't know. That's just guessing. I'm really selling it. Well, I am a car salesman, so maybe I'm just turning that on without thinking about it. But I don't, you know, I wouldn't pay that much for a non-running vehicle. But I'm also, like, not a big enough fan of Spawn. If I was a bigger fan of Spawn, you know, that's the kind of thing I would think about. It probably wouldn't cost that much to get it running again, to be honest. Tires, that's not that much. If you can pay $20,000 for a car, you know, that, and not be your main car, you can afford to buy new tires. It's either the Spider-Mobile or the Thanos copter. How much do I think it costs to make? I don't know. I don't know anything about what it would cost to do that. It's just a fun little novelty that I wanted to talk about. Skybound is going to reprint the Marvel run of G.I. Joe. Not a huge surprise. When IDW had the rights to G.I. Joe comics, they also were reprinting the Marvel books, but Skybound is going to do it differently. So, first, they're going to produce a compendium of the first 50 issues. That's a lot. By the way, that's the same book that Larry Hama is currently writing now at Skybound. It's well over 300 issues. Huge continuity. Really great book. I love it. This is going to be printed on newsprint. That's going to make sure that the original colors will reprint the same as how it looked in the original comics. I appreciate that attention to detail, to be honest. And $65. $65 for 50 issues, I think is a fair value. Even if it's on newsprint and it's a reprint and stuff, that's a lot of story for what you're getting there. If you're into G.I. Joe, I am. I'm probably going to get this just because it'll be an easier way to read it than like pulling out individual issues or even reading like, 5 trade paperbacks or more. So that comes out October 2nd. Yeah, I think that generally, comics look good on newsprint. So I like that. Newsprint can be more expensive, actually, ironically. It's not that it in and of itself is expensive. It's that because it isn't used as much, it costs more than it used to for newsprint. So you have to sort of justify it by, using it in bulk. So maybe that makes sense to do a compendium of 50 issues. Yeah, it was made. It's a fun run, folks. The first 50 issues of G.I. Joe introduced pretty much all of the main characters. Yes, because it was a toy line, there were characters that came after issue 50, like Headman or Ozone. They weren't ever really important to the story. The nice thing about this run is that Larry Hama always refocused on a group of core good guys and bad guys. Yeah, so yeah. Jeff Lemire is going to launch a new series at Boom Studios. He hasn't worked at Boom before, so this is new. Forbes shared this news. Kind of weird. They don't generally specialize in comic book news, but they had this. They had the exclusive. Jeff Lemire is going to both write and draw a new original comic series for Boom. It's going to come out this fall. No, Michael Golden drew a bunch of covers for G.I. Joe. I don't know if he did any interiors other than, special issues like Yearbook #2. Let's see. The only image that was shared is this teaser logo, which obviously reminds people of the Eye of Providence that you see on the back of a $1 bill. It's frequently associated with the Freemasons and the Illuminati, so I would presume it might have something to do with that, but that is a guess. There's no official word. Here's a quote, though, from Jeff Lemire about this, since all we see is this. We've got this quote. He says, "For a while now, I have felt like the ongoing series in comics is a dying breed. I'm guilty of this myself, having put out a lot of shorter projects over the last several years. But as both a comics fan and a creator, I've been craving longer format stories again. Series like the classic Vertigo monthlies that would drive me to the comic shops every week when I was younger." Totally agree. I would love to see some things that aren't all just 6, 8, 10, 12 issues and you're done. I enjoy a good, long, epic story with a bunch of chapters to it. It might still have a finite ending at issue 60 or 100 or something, but I like getting into a big meaty story that takes a while to really expand on the world and show you that core character go through a lot of different types of adventures. I don't think that Image itself has an exclusive with anybody. Some of their imprints might have an exclusive, but I don't think Image technically has an exclusive. So, for instance, there are some artists and writers that are exclusive to Giant Generator, but that's Rick Remender's imprint that's published through Image. But I don't know exactly what Lemire's status there is. Even then, a lot of these people will still be allowed to do maybe one other project, even when they're exclusive. They sometimes have that in their contract, that they can still do one or two other things. Oh yeah, East of West by Hickman I totally agree. It's a very good comic. That's a nice recommendation. It's a big, epic, post-apocalyptic Western story. Really cool. Fallout. People are telling me that that's a good show. I don't know Fallout. I've never played those games, but maybe I'll watch the show. Anyway, could be good. Jeff Lemire's a talented guy. This is another thing that just had a bunch of conversation online, more than like, something very specific for news. But the WEBTOON contract started a conversation primarily on Reddit. So last week there was a post to the Reddit r/WEBTOONs forum where the original poster warned about the current version of WEBTOON's Originals program. That's where you're allowed to, post your comic to WEBTOONs, and you can monetize it. You just have to agree to their terms. But they're saying that the current new contract for that is very onerous. For instance, this is just from the original poster. I have not seen the current contract, so I can't verify this. But I also haven't seen WEBTOON. They've had like a week to fight back, saying that that's inaccurate, and I haven't seen that. Anyway, allegedly the contract says that WEBTOON has the right to buy 100% of your IP. They get print publishing rights. That's new. They have the rights to merchandise your comic. Ugh. And they're allowed to become your agent to negotiate any print or multimedia development deals. So you're basically handing over most of your rights to your idea with this. And you know what? It might still be okay for some people if they're like, you know what, this isn't like my baby. This is just what I want to use to get my foot in the door. But if it does take off and WEBTOON's made millions and you only made, like hundreds, is that fair? I don't know. That is a totally fair thing to mention, James. Thank you. Yes, Nick Dragata did the art on East of West. Great artist. The right to become your agent. That does seem crazy. Gross. This sounds like a lot of manga contracts. Sometimes. But yeah, so the person had some... Oh, I guess that was everything I had to say about it. If you want to see more, just look up WEBTOON's original contract and, look at the discussion on Reddit, look at the discussion on Twitter. Keep in mind, people are going to like anytime it's a conversation in social media, it's going to devolve into fighting. But there are still some interesting points within that if you can filter that out. Yes, as Lando Calrissian famously said, this deal is getting worse all the time. Was that a perfect Billy D. Williams impression? Whoops. Anyway. It's close to work for hire. I mean, it doesn't quite go into... presumably, even if you, let them get the print rights and they're allowed to negotiate, other deals, you still get something, but you're not necessarily getting the best deal. Yes, it was a good impression. It was perfect. Thank you. I didn't expect it to come out so good. A New Hampshire comic book store had a fairly violent break-in. Nobody was hurt, just to be clear. I don't mean violent in that sense, but I'm talking about this place. And I just like to spread the word on things like this because you never know if that can help get somebody caught. Millar's Comics, Cards, and Collectibles in Northampton, New Hampshire was ransacked this past week. The owner found it robbed when he opened the store on Tuesday. The store is typically closed on Mondays, so they don't know exactly when it happened. I guess they didn't have anything in the news posts or the official Facebook for the store posted about it. None of them say that there was security camera footage, but at least they told the police an itemized list of what was stolen. And it was a lot. They estimate around $15,000 worth of merchandise had been stolen. That is a lot. That is a lot. The thief or thieves also, for some reason, really destroyed their gaming section. They've got it's a pretty big sort of like house almost, this is the store. And they've got like a lot of gaming tables and stuff. And I guess like all the tables were thrown over and shelves were tipped over and stuff was just destroyed. Merchandise was knocked down. So that's part of like what they're repairing now. They're open for business. If you're in the area, maybe you want to visit them and help out. Or maybe you will hear about something if you're in that area. Yeah, Billy Mitchell. I don't trust that guy. Fakes his scores, allegedly. The Thieves wanted a Jim Lee commission. Well, they're most of the way there. I don't think anybody's organizing them. They're all so different. No, to my knowledge, I went to their Facebook page. Again, Millar's Comics, Cards, and Collectibles, and I didn't see anything like that, but maybe they'll have started one by now. I didn't see it. Yeah, it just seems mean-spirited to have done that, so maybe it's just somebody that's angry at the owners. I don't know. Yes, we were riffing on Billy Mitchell, the arcade guy. It could be ghosts. You know what? We haven't been checking into ghosts lately. What if all these break-ins are the result of ghosts? Then it would be literally mean-spirited. I don't know if that was what was intended there. But when it's ghosts that are doing it, it's mean-spirited. Did anyone else see this news yet? Does this just blow your mind? They're making an R-rated live-action Ninja Turtles movie, folks. Yes, for real. The Hollywood Reporter broke this news. Paramount is currently developing The Last Ronin into a live-action R-rated Ninja Turtles movie. I would argue that it doesn't need to be R-rated to be accurate to the comic, even though it was hardcore. But whatever. We'll see. Tyler Burton Smith, he's the guy that's writing the movie that's about to come out, Boy Kills World. He wrote the 2019 Child's Play. Let's not hold that against him. He's writing this, but anyway, it just shows that they are putting together a team. And Walter Hamada, he used to be the head of the DC movies before Warner Brothers sort of appointed James Gunn and Peter Safran as DCU heads. Walter Hamada, though, used to see all the DC movies. He's producing this movie. He also wrote Alan Wake 2. Well, that's good. That's good, actually. Look, Ninja Turtles, I love. Okay, so I am not against this at all, just to be clear. I was like, I don't think it's necessary. But, this is a variant cover by Inhyukli. This comic sold like crazy, folks. This is like single-handedly keeping IDW at the top of the charts as far as comic publishers go. It's hard to say how well this did and have that in context, but Last Ronin beat everything pretty much that Marvel and DC did in the last couple of years in terms of sales. So people liked it, and I liked it. I think it's cool. If they are going to do an R-rated action movie and they do it like, some of these recent movies, like we'll say The Raid, John Wick, that's a reference point that does good R-rated action. They want to do it something like that. Could be cool. Could be really cool. I really hope they focus on really good martial arts cinematography and editing. I like martial arts and I want to see what's going on. I hate choppiness. I hate just bad editing and bad camera angles. Just please give me some good, well choreographed fights, some innovative stuff. Get a good fight choreographer. As far as who should direct it though, I'm blanking all of a sudden on the guy's name. Was it Gareth Evans that did The Raid? Get him, man. He'd do it well. He'd do it so well. I never heard a turtle swear. I don't think I would like that. Well, let me just say, Joe, go back to those original Mirage comics, and they do curse, and it is bloody. So I would say that R-rated isn't necessarily something that Turtles hasn't been before. I would say that Turtles kind of started that way. And there was a satirical edge to those original comics, but those original black and white comics were kind of R-rated in a lot of ways. Yeah. So I'm not against it. It could be good. Was it Gareth Edwards that I was thinking of? Did somebody? Let's go Mets. How dare you cheer on the Mets in my forum? Gareth Edwards. Maybe it was. So who was Gareth Evans? I'm totally mixing them up. But I'd rather have. Let me look it up. Hold on. Gareth Edwards did Monsters. I liked Monsters. And he did Godzilla 2014 and The Creator and stuff. He's good, but no, I think I was thinking of Gareth Evans. Let me I'm looking up filmmaker Welsh. Yes, I am. He did Marantau, The Raid 2. He's done some other good like he always has really well done action in his movies. Even stuff like The Apostle on Netflix, like that wasn't like per se a fighting movie, but it had good action. He did a horror short in one of the VHS movies, didn't he? I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else for that. But anyway, Gareth Evans is good. I would go with him. That's my choice. I'm up for a live-action Ninja Turtles movie. We'll see. Speaking of Turtles, Kevin Eastman is going to contribute to the Ninja Turtles 40th anniversary. Not a huge surprise, is it? Let's see. So IDW is going to publish this book, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 40th Anniversary Comics Celebration. 72 pages. That's going to be a one-shot in July for $12. $12 for 72 pages is these days a decent price. It's reasonable. It's gonna have a bunch of different covers, but one of them, cover A, is inked by Kevin Eastman over an old Peter Laird sketch. It's not a new Peter Laird sketch, but it's an unpublished piece of Peter Laird art. So this is a Laird Eastman original for us in 2024, and that's cool to just have the original creators involved in that regard. The book is going to bring back a ton of previous writers and artists who've worked on Ninja Turtles over the last 40 years. People like Jim Lawson, he was a Mirage employee. Kerry Randolph and Emilio Lopez, they famously did a bunch of the work on that second animated Ninja Turtles show, the one, what was it, like 2004 or something? Freddie Williams II, and a news story by Kevin Eastman, among others. I think Sophie Campbell was in there, a bunch of people. So, yeah, 2003. Thank you. I was close. I'm going to watch it with earplugs at the cinema and talk over loud about how glad I am that I can't hear the potty talk. Did they do some work on the Dreamwave run? They probably did. Oh, he did. He also worked on the cartoon, just to be clear. So did Emilio. So, yeah, they both worked on the cartoon. That makes sense that they worked on the comic then, too. That's cool. So, I love Ninja Turtles, man. They're just... I love it. You've only read the Mirage comics? I recommend reading the IDW run. It's very good. Dynamite Originals, a creator imprint, but for one of their characters, just to be clear. So, what is it? Well, Dynamite is launching a Kickstarter for its new imprint, Dynamite Originals, for an anthology book they're calling Vampirella, Black, White, and Blood. Okay. It's overseen by Mirka Andolfo and her studio, Arancia. along with American creators like Tim Seeley and Steve Orlando. There's going to be, I think, 3 stories in it that these 3 folks are writing. There's going to be covers by some interesting people. Yeah, and there's the link to that. It hasn't launched yet. It is a Kickstarter, but it's overseen by Mirka Andolfo. So if you liked things like Sweet Paprika or her Harley Quinn stuff, or whatever she's doing over at what's that new imprint, Distillery, maybe this is up your alley too. Talented artist, no question. Super talented. Thought I'd share that. Dynamite and Boom need to work together, if only because their name fit together so well. Very cool. Oh yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome to see them talk together. I'm so glad. You know, they sort of drifted apart after a while, but it is lovely that they have so much love and respect for each other. They created something really special with Ninja Turtles. So Dynamite doing something fun there. I would like to see more creator-owned stuff or creator overseen stuff where they're just sort of allowed to play in the sandbox with characters. I think that's fun. Let me talk about this. The 2023 comics sales trends. Well, Brian Hibbs over at Comics Beat has summarized the sales from last year. Huge article. I strongly recommend reading his actual article because it has way more information than I'm sharing here, and I don't want to summarize everything that he did. Like, that would be stealing. But I do want to talk just about a few of the high-level trends that were that I saw in the article. It's a really interesting article. First of all, Dogman number 11 was the best-selling graphic novel in North America last year. More than 1 million units sold. We're just talking for that 1 year. Very strong, very strong. All of these Pilkey Dogman books sell like bonkers. They just sell so well. Graphic novel sales overall were down 20% from 2022, but it's worth noting it was still the 3rd biggest sales year overall. Sales went up huge during the pandemic. More people were reading at home. So 2021 and 2022 were both like the biggest years. 2023, still the 3rd biggest year for overall sales in graphic novels and comics. But let's break it down a little bit. This is coming from BookScan, so just a sales tracker. 44.7 million graphic novels were sold via BookScan in 2023, so probably a little bit more than that, but how much I couldn't really tell you. But we'll just start with this number. 44.7 million graphic novels sold in 2023. Nearly 21.8 million were manga, so that's almost 49%. Not quite half, but definitely super close. Kids comics were approximately 17 million copies. That's another 38% of the market. The remaining 5.9 million sold were primarily aimed at adults. So that's around 13%. And that would include basically everything that's, indie, everything that's superhero, everything that's mainstream. All the publishers that you and I generally talk about each week fit within just that 13%. Hey, if you're not a kid, there's no reason you necessarily would have heard of Dogman. But if you ever go into a Walmart, a Target, or a Barnes and Nobles, you're going to see a lot of them. They really sell. Wait. For some reason, I'm showing that there are only 6 people watching the show. That can't be right. That can't be right. It says that I've got full stream health and it's still going. I don't know. Did YouTube do something to me? Are you guys are all still here, right? I mean, I'm seeing comments and stuff, but it's showing me now that there are only it's showing me that there's only like 7 people. Okay. I am one of the 6.
I don't know. Everybody, there's tons of comments, so I think that there are definitely more than 6 or 7, and I seem to be streaming. I don't show anything that like says that I'm not, but that the stream glitched for you. Some sort of YouTube thing, I think. Oh well. It's still showing me that only 7 people are watching, but that's clearly not accurate. I just saw that number and I was like, that's hilarious if I was like doing like 2.5-hour shows for like 7 people, but whatever. Let me talk about this. So yeah, like there's some of our numbers. Marvel and DC combined are less than 10% of the book market. It is what it is. It's comics and graphic novels sell great, but Marvel and DC are only a small portion of that these days. Now, that said, it's not like they've overall, like since say like the 2000s, like in the last 20 years, it's not like their numbers have gone down. It's that things like young adults and manga have gone way up. That's what's mostly happening. IDW had the best year out of any of the comic publishers that do like mainstream superhero type stuff. Last Ronin sold 148,000 copies in 2023. And keep in mind, that was a book that ran from 2020 through 2022. So that was all reprints. 148,000. That beat everything that Marvel and DC did. Oh, thank you, C. Craig. You have always been really, really kind watching my show. Thank you for the kind super chat. That means a lot to me. I really appreciate the kindness. You always put kindness out there in the world of comics. Thank you. Thank you very much. They didn't lose most of their licenses. They lost G.I. Joe and Transformers. They still have Ninja Turtles. They still have My Little Pony. They have Sonic. They have Star Trek. They have a lot. They still have a lot, to be honest. They do. Godzilla. They've got a bunch. Godzilla, IDW had the best year. Thanks to Last Ronin, basically. Thanks to Last Ronin. I know. Yeah, they have been downsizing, and who knows what they'll do for 2024. But, the Last Ronin kept them afloat, no question. Last piece of news I've got, and then I am going to... I thought Oni has always had Rick and Morty. But, since you mention it, hold on 2 seconds before I do this. Let me just... Resources are exhausted. What? Let me just check if I can like pull it up and like as a new viewer or something like that. I'm just going to see if I can pull it up. It looks like my show is still going. I'm very confused. Now, actually, I can't pull it up. How many people? Thanks, YouTube. I don't know what's going on. Oh, hold on. Now it's... All right. Now I can pull it up on my phone, through like a separate account. So I guess I'm still going. I don't know what they mean. It means I'll probably make like $0 on ad revenue later. I'll just get like the super chats from today. Yeah, because it's only shown. Yeah, it seems like a bunch of you are here. I can pull it up as a new viewer. Like I'm not logged into this account. I could if I wanted pull it up. So I don't understand. Yeah, thank you, Chrissy. Playing Duolingo upstairs is definitely draining our resources. I don't think it has anything to do with our Wi-Fi. Like I'm showing
totally strong signal. My computer's running fine. I think that YouTube's having something strange going on. Yeah, very strange. Last piece of news I have. One of the Rick and Morty co-creators has joined the One Punch Man movie. So, here we go. Sony's been developing a live-action adaptation of the manga One Punch Man since 2020, I think, is when they started it. And director Justin Lin is attached. Justin Lin, Fast and Furious movies, things like that. He's done tons of stuff. Aquaman. He's a solid director. Anyway, this week, writer Heather Ann Campbell shared on Twitter that she and Dan Harmon have both been brought aboard to rewrite the script before it, goes into active production. Heather Ann Campbell, super funny, by the way. She also writes for Rick and Morty. She's performed as like one of the improv people on that show. What's it called? Whose Line Is It Anyway? She's a really funny person. She's really, really funny. And I personally think Dan Harmon is really funny. He got his start writing backup comics with his friend Rob Schraub in Scud. So yeah, we're talking about Dan Harmon as the co-creator of Rick and Morty here. Oh, okay. I think he's pretty funny. I think he's pretty amazing. Yeah, I think that's the same person. Yeah, Heather Ann Campbell. So she's funny, man. She says that she and Dan Harmon are writing this. Let's see. No, that was Justin Roiland. If you don't know One Punch Man, it's pretty funny, first of all. Originally, that was a webcomic in 2009, and then they turned it into a print manga in 2012. Obviously, it's also an anime these days. The story is about this guy, Saitama. He decided to become a superhero for fun, and he trained for 3 whole years, and that made him so powerful that he can now defeat any monster, supervillain, or alien with a single punch. I missed your super chat? Hold on, Joe. I don't think I saw it, to be honest. I'm scrolling back. Oh, nope, I did miss it. We all clubbed together and gave £1 each. Thank you. Although now it tells me that I only have 3 viewers, to be fair. So you gave me more than twice what I deserve, apparently. Thank you. Thank you to my 3 viewers. My 3 viewers. I don't know what to make of the show at this point. That is so bonkers. But I do think that this is pretty funny. At one point, he reveals what his training regimen was, and it's to do like 100 sit-ups, 100 push-ups, and 100 squats every day. All right, what else have we got today? We have comics to review, folks. So I'm going to bring that up. Give me a sec. Turning on a camera here, and we are going to get into some of the comics that came out. I feel like I'm doing well enough to get more than 7, but maybe not. Maybe not. Extra camera. There we go. Okay. Sorry, it's just taking a minute to get this going. Oh, I do need to plug in the USB cord, don't I? That does typically help to turn a camera on. I'm a professional. I've been doing this for a little while. Hold on, I've got to figure out the focus on this. Am I frozen? Oh my God. I can't tell if this is working or not. One moment, folks. Oh my God. Give me a sec here. How about now? Now am I on? I think I'm back. Jesus. Video is good, people say. All right. Thank you. And thank you for the super chat, Max Power. That's very kind of you. I'm fighting something on YouTube's end, and I really can't explain it. I wish I had like a producer or something that could like, work on these problems for me, but instead, we'll just try to figure it out ourselves. I'm going to adjust this camera a little, and we'll move it over here. Yeah. Okay, I'm about to show you something really cool. I'm just going to power through this and hope that it's at least archived so that other people can show. Okay, this is interesting. Thank you. YouTube isn't showing any of your subscriptions because I just went onto my phone and looked at subscriptions and it was completely blank. But if I looked up this show specifically, I can see it. My feed won't load. Okay, it's YouTube. So I just happen to be live streaming when YouTube's having a glitch. They don't have a lot of glitches, but every once in a while, YouTube can glitch out. And if you're live streaming, it just kind of stinks because it just means new people aren't really going to see me. So like most of you guys like have pretty much been here and you've stayed here, which I'm really grateful for. But otherwise, yeah, we're dealing with some YouTube issues. Let me see if I can get this focus a little better. No, that's not better. Huh. Just want that to be in focus is all. I guess that's okay. So let me talk about this book. That was quite a delay. But I want to keep going. I want to do a show. Let's make a show. I talked last month about how pleasantly surprised I was with Batman Dylan Dog. Two characters I like. I like the artists that were named, but I didn't necessarily know anything about the writer. And because it's primarily, it was made for the Italian market. We've got Roberto Recchione on the story and script. We've got Gigi Cavanago and Werther Deladera on the art. If you're not familiar with the character, this comic tells you everything you need to know. Dylan Dog is an Englishman. He investigates. He calls himself a nightmare investigator. Batman, of course, investigates all sorts of stuff. What's cool about this is, like, first of all, look, it's great art. I feel like the focus on this is terrible, to be honest. Hold on. Well, that's worse. That's a little better, I think. Okay. The art's great. The dialogue in this is cracking. The dialogue in this is so witty. Let's see. Did this series get people looking into the first Dylan Dog run? I hope so. Dylan Dog's a really cool character. But if you don't know him, that's okay. This is its own series. It's not connected to anything else, and it gives you everything you need to know. It's just keeping its focus really tight on Batman and Dylan Dog, and after that, just their top villains and their top allies. I don't want to spoil anything, but I cannot recommend this highly enough. I think that this may be my favorite thing that I read this past week. I just love the dialogue in this. Here's what's cool. So they're investigating something supernatural, right? That's what Dylan Dog does. Who would Batman bring in to this? It makes all the sense in the world. John Constantine, man. John Constantine is a huge part of issue 2, and it fits so well. John and Dylan are both guys in England. It's fantastic how well they work together. I can't recommend it strongly enough. Do they talk to Etrigan the demon? Absolutely. I'm not going to give you any more than that, but let's just say that this cover is closer to literal than just sort of a metaphorical idea. It's not completely literal, but it's damned good. It's damned good. I believe it's pronounced Dylan. Really? I've always heard it pronounced Dylan Dog, but maybe you're right. I don't know. Oh, everybody on this is doing a great job. Sorry, let me just focus. There. If you want to see Batman, a little out of his element because it's the supernatural, but taking all the right steps on how to resolve it by bringing in experts, it's good. The dialogue is witty. Constantine is so snarky, but boy, is it like, it's hard not to like him, even though he's kind of a scumbag. It's by Italians, but the character, Dylan, canonically lives in England, in London, England. So it's an Italian comic. It's an Italian crew. I think that they've made one of the best comics out there. It's thick, by the way. A lot of pages here. A lot of pages for $4.99. So this is a better value than your average comic. This is more than 22 pages. Does it say how many? It doesn't say how many. I'm going to guess it might be 48. It might be 36. I'm not sure. It's a lot. It's really good. Really? YouTube is bumping down your stream health to 3, as low as 360? That's crazy. Anyway. Making a joke because of Constantine, right. Everybody says John Constantine, but technically creator Alan Moore says that the name he intended to be pronounced Constantine. Got it. Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool to hear. Anyway, what else can I say other than, do I recommend it? Yes. Look out for it. As far as I know, it isn't like, selling out per se, but it's really, really strong. This is a fun comic story. It's an adventure with some really clever dialogue. I am so impressed with it. Transformers, I've been talking up as one of my favorite books that I'm reading right now. And I was a big Transformers fan as a kid, kind of fell out of it for a long time. As soon as sort of the original toys started becoming a little too sci-fi, right around 86 or so, I kind of lost interest. I was only really interested in the first 2 years, but I did love the original cartoon, I will admit. And I liked the idea of Transformers. I didn't love the 5 Michael Bay movies. I saw them. I don't really like them that much. But I did like Bumblebee. The last one was okay. This is Daniel Warren Johnson's take on Transformers, and it's informed very strongly based on the original cartoon, but it's its own thing too. It's its own thing. Like some characters die. What's different about this issue is it's starting the second arc, and the artist here is not Daniel Warren Johnson. He's writing still. He's writing, but he's not the artist. The artist is Jorge Corona, but I don't know about you guys, but I feel like this is still a damn great take on Transformers. It kind of hits something between IDW did a lot of very technical sort of detail on their Transformers, and Daniel Warren Johnson did something that's much more sort of like, focusing on the motion and the actions, and Jorge Corona goes somewhere in between. But I think he does a really nice job on these characters. And we get to see some cool stuff that we always sort of wanted to see in the past, but I haven't seen before. This is, we've had Starscream leading the Decepticons for a while. Megatron is just sort of out of the picture, question mark as to what's happening there. And in this one, the Decepticons have kind of had it with Starscream doing a bad job as leader. And so we get a big fight between him and Soundwave that looks really, really cool. Like the fights in this are really brutal. We also get some stuff where the good guys are sort of recovering. They kind of just barely eked out a win in the first arc. They survived, but they're hurting, you know. Some of their key allies died. Some people got hurt, both emotionally and physically. And at the same time, there is still a little bit of humor here. I just want to say one thing that amuses me is Starscream had just totally torn apart his ally Skywarp for his parts and hooked them up to this huge Transformers spaceship called the Ark. Now, the Autobots have taken over the Ark, but Skywarp is sort of like, he's sort of like not himself, but his parts are helping run the computers. He comes across as just like barely there. He goes, "Eat my vapor, Autobast." And Wheeljack's just like, "That's enough of that," and shuts him down. But it's a little funny, to be honest, that like it's coming out like that. You know, who would have ever expected something sort of as simple but visually striking as Optimus Prime losing an arm and eventually, after a few issues, getting it replaced with Megatron's arm, which still raises the question like of where Megatron is. But it works. It works. I think Jorge Corona is a good fit. I still am enjoying the story. Do I prefer Daniel Warren Johnson as the artist? I do, but I'm biased. I love that guy's work. I love it. Oh yeah, you're right. Like the viewer count is now showing up as something probably closer to what it should be. Thank you. The thing about this Transformers run is each issue is going to give you sort of a bunch of subplots and some action. It's not like it's not necessarily giving you one issue where that's the entire story, one and done. But it's also not really doing a stretched out thing where you feel like all you're getting is a piece of the story. Instead, you're always going to get about one good action scene, at least one, maybe two or three, and then a bunch of subplots. And it keeps everything moving. There's a lot of characters here. We focus very tightly on, two or three Transformers and like two humans. I like it. I like it a lot. I think that there's some really great choices. I hope Daniel Warren Johnson sticks with this for a while because he's doing a really good job on it. Peach Momoko is writing and drawing Ultimate X-Men. And to be clear, when I say writing, I should also give credit to Zach Davison. He's credited as the script adaptation. My understanding from when I've talked to Zach is, they sort of talk about the story back and forth. And so he's doing a little help translating, but he's also helping, structure the story. That's my understanding. That said, a lot of the ideas in the creativity is coming from Peach's mind. And she's really reimagining what an X-Men story is. In terms of commonalities with what we're used to, it's got young people that are outsiders, no question, and with superpowers. Are they hated and feared? We're not even quite there yet. We focus very strongly on Hisako. I don't remember her last name right now, but Hisako in the comics is Armor. The biggest difference with what Peach is doing is it seems much more spiritual and supernatural, which makes it feel a lot like a lot of the manga that I've read. Now, you still read it left to right. It's an American comic. I mean, it's got full colors. Peach is also very good at colors, but yeah, she's got a lovely sort of earthy watercolor style that keeps it unique. But it's an interesting blend of manga ideas in an American format. It's a little hard to describe, to be honest. Because I don't feel like I've seen this exact thing in superhero comics. Peach did do Demon Wars, but that was sort of its own side story idea of like let's remix American Marvel superheroes with some Japanese mythology. And this isn't trying to do that, but it is starting with characters that do live in Japan. They're students. In this, we meet like the second sort of main character, Maystorm, who becomes a friend of Hisako. And they're investigating like this weird being that, like, this is a villain, but so far they're killing people that teased Hisako's friend to the extent that her friend killed himself. So, like, those are bad people, right? Like, they sort of do deserve to be targeted, but not killed. That and as you can see, like, there's some really freaky, monstrous stuff here. It's very supernatural tinged. I like that it's so different. Here's why I like it. I don't know what to expect next, and I do like that in a story in general. I like for the story to stay ahead of me and surprise me. I don't want to be confused by what's going on, but so far I'm not. I like a lot of the ideas here. I do. So I'm enjoying this book quite a bit. I think that if you're open to a new interpretation of X-Men, that you'll like it. If you're expecting just more classic X-Men adventure, then no, that's not what this is. This also isn't, to be clear, reading a manga. It blends the two into something unique. Tricky, but I'll talk a little bit about that since we were just talking about X-Men. So, X-Men 97 is a show that's back on the airwaves, right? Not really, because it's on streaming now at Disney Plus. It is literally a continuation of that original X-Men animated series from the 90s. I don't want to spoil it because not everybody watches streaming shows at the same rate. But it's very good, folks. It really is. Now, it really speed runs a lot of the classic stories that we've seen before. It digests them. But you know what? So far, I don't mind that. Because I think it also has the benefit of looking back at a lot of these 90s comics that they're adapting at this point. Some of the later, and actually now that I'm thinking of it, even some of the 80s stuff that Chris Claremont wrote. But they have the benefit of hindsight, of knowing where it goes. So, for instance, Cyclops was sort of a little ruined for a while in the comics at one point because there was an editorial directive to bring back the 5 original X-Men for a new book that they were going to call X Factor. What did that mean? Well, Jean Grey was dead at the time, so they had to undo that and bring her back with a retcon. Questionable how well that worked. You know, what's done is done. That wasn't the worst of it. What was worse was Chris Claremont had, after Jean Grey died, given Cyclops a happy ending. He'd met a new woman that did look a lot like Jean Grey, Madeline Pryor. He married her. They moved and retired to Alaska, where Cyclops grew up, and they even had a kid together. But in X Factor, when Jean Grey is found to actually still be alive, dude ditched his kid and his wife. And Madeline Pryor ends up becoming, eventually this like angry goblin queen. Didn't make it wasn't fair to Madeline Pryor. It was an editorial mandate that like really sort of screwed up Cyclops a little. It took some of the heroism away from him. This show has the benefit of knowing where all that went. And instead of having Cyclops like cheat on Madeline or, like abandon her when she's had a kid, it condenses everything so that like, Mr. Sinister's machinations are found out all at the same time. Okay. So it just, we do get this reveal of Madeline Pryor as a clone. She does sort of temporarily become the Goblin Queen, but it fixes things in terms of Cyclops never ditches his kid and his wife. So that's nice. Yeah, it was a weird X-Men plot line, and Chris Claremont had to work really hard to make Cyclops like a likable hero again after like, you know, like there were these external factors that dictated how a character was going to act. And it was like, oh man, that's not really how that character would behave, is it? But anyway, the latest episode, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but they actually kill off one of the main X-Men. And they actually slightly adapt some of the Grant Morrison new X-Men run from dealing with like the island of Genosha with mutants. I thought it was very effectively done. It was cool. It was emotional. It was really good. In the comics, the reason she became the Goblin Queen was it was connected to magic. Ilyana Rasputin, she teleports through a realm inhabited by demons, and in the comics, those demons got out and infected the world, including infecting Madeline Pryor, and she became the Goblin Queen. In the TV show, since it's all condensed and everything, she just goes a little crazy and uses her psychic powers to, you know, sort of create artificial demons. Like the X-Men think they're fighting demons briefly, but it's all like, you know, telepathic stuff. But in the comics, it was connected to magic. And the demons from the realm that she teleports through, Limbo. It was a storyline called Inferno. It was kind of weird, but kind of fun too. Anyway, yeah, they kill off a main character, and I'm starting to think that they may ultimately undo some of what we've seen this season. They might not, but they have seeded some time travel stuff with both Bishop and Cable, like briefly in the background. There's a small possibility that like some of this stuff could go back. We'll see. I don't think that they'd want to undo everything that they're doing right now because they are developing Magneto quite a bit. An arc that he went through in the comics as well, where Xavier basically recruits him to lead the X-Men and the New Mutants for a while. And it changes his perspective. He doesn't come to like humans, but he does come to believe in Xavier's dream is possible. And that's nice. Anyway, it's a good show. If you do have Disney Plus, I recommend checking it out because I'll tell you, I was not somebody that watched all of those cartoons back in the day. So I was like, is it going to make sense to me? It makes sense. At least if you've read the comics, I think you'll have enough of a background to follow along, no problem. It's really good. I'm going to go back to like some comics. Show's going a little longer than usual, but you know why? Usually when I do the show on Monday, I have to work the next day, Tuesday. So I'm like, okay, 2 hours. I got to get it done so that I can have dinner, get back to editing comic tropes. I don't have my day job tomorrow. I can just edit as late as I want tonight. No One Bite Snack. I have not seen the first episode of Kaiju number 8 yet. I do enjoy the manga, actually. So I'd be curious to check it out. I hear that it's on Twitter, actually. Yeah, I only have 6 viewers anyway, but I'll do whatever I want. I discovered this manga several months ago. Issue 1 was out. Issue 2 just came out. I say issue 2. To be clear, it's a hardcover compilation of a bunch of manga chapters. This is a story and art by Shinichi Sakamoto. Really talented. A digital manga artist, and I think you can tell when you look at the art because it's so detailed. More than you can really realistically do with a pen and paper, unless you were drawing like 3 times the size of what a normal comic artist draws at and then condensing it down from the scan. But it's about Dracula, and it's a reimagining where it's set during the same time. Dracula is basically the same, but the heroes of the story, you know, Mina Murray and Lucy Harker and Quincy and Arthur and all of them, they're all middle school students at a school. That's the big difference here. There's also a difference with Lucy, who's technically in this trans, but the artwork is the real feature here. It is just so lush and detailed and very creepy. Oh, and I do like their take on Abraham Van Helsing. As long as most of the main characters are kids, that means Abraham Van Helsing can just be basically a young teacher. Let me see if I can find one of like the classic sort of, I don't know, like this is an example of the sort of like horror in it, you know, like where characters are turned into like, you know, vampires and stuff. But there's also surreal stuff like all these garlic flowers like all throughout. The level of detail is legit insane in this. But the posing and stuff is gorgeous. Like I can't show you a good indication of just how detailed this stuff is, but it is really detailed. It's really detailed. It sort of makes you feel a little uncomfortable with some of the stuff, you know, Dracula does to Lucy. But that's good in a horror comic like this. Dracula is legit disturbing. Sometimes there's surreal things where you can tell he's just getting into people's heads. You know, he'll show up in like paintings or dreams or shadows. And like this one, it's obviously surreal. This must be taking place in Mina's mind, although it isn't explicitly stated as such. And it's just got Dracula mostly sort of in shadow. You never quite see exactly what he looks like, you know, just leaping through these frames that would be on the school walls. Yeah, there are like 2-page spreads that are sort of like, they're erotic and there's like depth to it. There's detail to the hair and the clothing and stuff like that. It's really amazing. So I mostly recommend this for just how amazing the art is. I wouldn't exactly call it realistic, but it does have a realism to it, an authenticity. I don't know what word I'm sort of struggling to find. It's not for everybody, you know, like a sort of idea of erotic horror, but it's really, I like it, but I like horror of all kinds. And I like this new take on Dracula. Yes, Ashley, you're probably, I'm sure that is intentional. Anyway, hashtag DRCL is what it's called. There's only 2 of these hardcover volumes out, so it's you know, barely even started the story, to be honest. It's pretty stretched out because there's so much, you know, art that'll be like, you know, paced slowly so that you can really get into the characters' headspace. The characters are definitely traumatized by the crazy stuff that goes on. But I like it. It's probably not for everybody, but I think that the main reason is the art. It's not like the children are like, it's nothing sexual with the children, just to be clear. But Dracula is targeting these kids and like, you know, yeah. So it's disturbing. It's weird. This is the title, hashtag DRCL. It's definitely disturbing that like it's Dracula, but going after like kids. And they're probably like, I don't know, 13, 14, 15, somewhere around there. I don't know. It's basically following the novel's story, you know, like the Demeter runs aground and Dracula was in those, you know, boxes from Transylvania. It's just that all the heroes are all at a school instead of being just sort of like upper crust adults. That's all. Might not be for you, might, but I thought I'd put it on your radar. Rick Remender is doing this book with Bengal. This is another one where, like, I'd say the main drawing point is Bengal, if you like his artwork. It's a sci-fi / superhero idea. A bit of a slow burn, but I will say that Rick writes big stories, kind of like the Vertigo stuff we were talking a little bit about earlier, and that his work tends to read very well in trade paperback form. Like when you can digest a bunch of the story at once, because he does a lot of world building and a lot of character work, which can be you know, like in just like 22 to 24 pages, it's kind of hard to digest it all. I like it, but I think that this is a book that reads better when you can read a bunch of it all at once, for what it's worth. I've been talking up the last 2 months how much I enjoy the current Incredible Hulk run, but especially this story. Now, Nick Klein is a fantastic artist. He's technically the main artist, and he did the cover here, but he's getting a break so that he can catch up on the book. And Danny Earls has stepped in as the guest artist. Now, I'm a big fan of one thing that Danny Earls does, and that is architecture and cities. I just think that that's where his true talent really lies. But he does a fun story here where Hulk is fighting an ancient demon, we'll call it, who was technically loyal to Lucifer. So it gets into some sort of like religious supernatural ideas. But this demon has been sort of for forever, basically, taking vulnerable kids, and so that they're not like tormented and stuff, turns them into like physical dolls that she can keep safe. She's called Frozen Charlotte. It's not Mephisto, Crichton. They instead, you know, could somebody retcon it and say that it was Mephisto or some other demon in Marvel, like, you know, Satanish or something? Sure, they could. But yeah, like, look, I'm going to just cut to the chase. The fun of this run by writer Philip Kennedy Johnson is that every issue has Hulk fighting monsters. It's just an excuse for Hulk to be smashing on monsters. And yeah, it's fun. It's really fun. These issues have also all been set in New Orleans. Look, that tickles my nostalgia bone. I used to live in New Orleans. I have a lot of affection for that city. There's a lot of personality to it, and some of that is brought into this book, so that is cool. Yeah, it's said to be literally Lucifer in this, and they don't go into a whole lot of detail with that and what that means to Marvel's hierarchy of demons or anything. But you know what? Sometimes it's not important. Sometimes you can just focus on telling a good story. And down the road, if you want to fit that into some sort of supernatural rules, some other writer can do that. It's surprising how good Hulk works in a horror context when at his core, it's just a big, strong guy, right? The strongest guy, but a big, strong guy. And it's a sci-fi idea. You know, he was created by a gamma bomb, the radiation. And there's been a lot of interesting psychological stuff that some of the writers like Bill Mantlo and Peter David have played with, like where he might have, you know, Bruce Banner has dissociative identity disorder. But Hulk works quite well with horror. Hulk just works on a really good level where, yeah, maybe he is this sci-fi brute, but he does a good job at just smashing things that are like, oh, you know, I'm this ancient evil that you cannot comprehend. You can't beat me. And he's just like, I'm just going to hit you until I beat you. And that's it. And it works. And it's satisfying to see these haughty elder beings get their comeuppance because Hulk just takes it down to a basic level and just punches them until it ends. I know that sounds simple, but with the right delivery, it's very fun. It's very fun. I wonder if they'll do an issue where Hulk smashes Zydeco music. Probably not. There was a Hulk versus Man-Thing issue of this run. It was a 2-part story. So yes, he's gone up against Man-Thing. He's gone up against zombies. He's gone up against sort of a new version of like a World War II Ghost Rider. He's gone up against like Cthulhu-esque gigantic, you know, gross monsters, just massive kaiju-sized monsters. So he's just going up against both new monsters, and he does go up against some of the monsters that already exist within Marvel continuity. I think that they did a one-shot issue where he also encountered Werewolf by Night. I didn't read that, but I'm enjoying the regular run. It's pretty cool. And I'm excited to see where Danny Earls goes from here. But I think his best work is really with more urban, city type environments, architecture, like real world type stuff. But he can do anything. But I like that stuff from him. Oh man, Hulk versus Jason Voorhees could be kind of fun. Yep, Betty Ross. They're slowly rolling in some of the existing Hulk mythology, but they don't hit you all over the head with it. This is issue 11 of a new run, and it doesn't discount or like feel like a reboot, but it just starts its own fresh story, and it's slowly rolling in some of the other stuff that you may like from Hulk's history, like Betty Ross, and maybe at some point people like Thunderbolt Ross or the Army, but for now, that's not the important aspect. Hey, that's actually good that I had the one right after the other. Danny Earls drew this, an Irish artist. Now we'll go to an Irish writer, Declan Shalvey, who is recreating Thundercats. Drew Moss, the artist, draws the Thundercats in a way that's pretty reminiscent of what we'd remember from the original 80s cartoon. But this is definitely a new take on everything. For instance, Mum Ra is in his castle, like, brooding and plotting. He hasn't gone up against the Thundercats yet, but he sees the ghost of Jaga, and that's basically like this ancient ghost that used to help Lion-O and stuff. But in this, Jaga like really acts like a ghost and like surprises Mum Ra. I wasn't expecting that. We've got some internal conflict with the Thundercats and how this sort of royal family is going to run itself. We've got a new version of Snarf that doesn't like talk and isn't goofy, but he does have like a psychic connection with Lion-O so that Lion-O understands what Snarf means. It's new ideas. It's cool. There's a new character, a new Thundercat that we didn't have in the original show called Calica, and we don't know exactly where her loyalties lie. That means that there's some surprises in place for where this goes. We still haven't really even seen the Thundercats go up against their traditional enemies like Slithe or Monkeyan, but they are in this, and that's coming. They're just building the characters and its world in a really satisfying way. I was never the biggest Thundercats fan, I'll be honest. I watched some of it, but I didn't have any Thundercats toys. I didn't watch all of the shows. I was pretty casual. But I am still like reading this Thundercats comic, and I like it because it's giving me a fresh mythology that I can follow along with. I would say there are things that I'd love to see more of. I'd love to see at this point. It's issue 3. I hope by issue 4 we do have some fighting with the mutants or some fighting with Mumra. I do want to see some of that now. We've established these characters in this world. It's time to give us some action, okay? If I compare it to another 80s adaptation or something like that, I kind of do prefer how Daniel Warren Johnson has been structuring Transformers, where we always get some big action scenes. That's really important in comics. The melodrama and stuff it works very well. This is structured a lot more like a superhero comic, like a Spider-Man. And they found a way within this sci-fi world to make these characters relatable. They have real jobs. They have one person, is responsible for the technology. Another person's responsible for being a guard. There are responsibilities that they have and personalities and conflicts that help. But I do want to see a little bit more fighting. There was one fight in this, though. And it was well done. Chitara and Panthro have a fight. It's just I wish I liked it, but I'm ready for them to fight some bad guys. I'm ready for that. I really need it soon. A Silverhawks comic could be good. Silverhawks was always a little sillier than Thundercats. I've got 2 more comics, so I'll go over them because I'm having fun. I had Elliot Kalin last week as my interview, and he is writing this new book, Disney's Hercules, through Dynamite. I'm a big Elliott Kalan fan. Not necessarily a big Hercules fan, but I'm a big Elliott Kalan fan. And I was like, well, let's give this a shot. And you know what? I like it. I do. I don't even really remember the Hercules movie too well. Doesn't matter. This does take place after that movie. Hercules has renounced his godhood, but he still has super strength. So he's basically been put in the position of like the gods keep giving him jobs, tasks, just like their busy work, their dirty work that they're too good for. And they kind of look down on him a little bit because he renounced his godhood. But I like that. I like that he's got a role and a job in this world, and that it's an interesting, exciting job, fighting like monsters and beasts and stuff like that. His relationship with Meg is charming. Is the dialogue funny? Absolutely. Elliott Kalan is hilarious. Exactly, Kevin Street. Almost like Labors. Yeah, the Labors of Hercules. In the interview last week, Elliott said he was looking to, when he can, mix in real ideas from Greek mythology. And he does that in this issue, and it works quite well. He takes the story of Pygmalion. Pygmalion was a sculptor who fell in love with his sculpture and asked the gods to make it real. So Aphrodite, the goddess of love, grants that wish. But that means that there is this humongous stone woman that's like super strong, and so there is like sort of a task to bring her in and stuff like that. She's not necessarily evil. What's cool about it is like we get a whole story, right? Hercules is finding his place in the world with this new role, sort of chasing down monsters and stuff. You saw like as it started, he'd tamed this massive lion. So we've got that, but then we're introduced to a subplot at the very end. It's teased that Eros says Aphrodite has been kidnapped. Something has kidnapped a god. That's great stakes for something like this. So Hercules has sort of I think a subplot that will build to something where he's got to figure out what is abducting gods. But let's also just say, how curvy was she? She's curvy. No, I don't think it follows the Greek myths that closely. It's more like inspiration. George Cambadeus is the artist. He's Greek, by the way. I think that that's a good fit for this. And he does draw in a style that's reminiscent of Disney, but it's still its own thing. It doesn't feel like it's bound by hard and fast rules to just look exactly like the movie. It looks right to me, but it isn't stiff. It isn't stiff. Maybe it's Kratos, maybe it's something else. I don't know. It's still odd to think that the same guy who did the animation in Pink Floyd's The Wall was approached by Disney to design Hercules. It's surprisingly good, folks. So look, how much you like this might depend on how much you like things like Disney's Hercules or Elliott Kalan. I gave this a try because I like Elliott. I think he's a good writer, and I think he's also funny, and I knew he'd be able to use some of his humor in this, and it is funny. But he also has a well-structured story here. I'm going to be sticking with this one, at least for the foreseeable future, see where the underlying mystery takes things, see if it's still enjoyable. But so far, better than I would typically expect out of, like, I'll be honest, like, the Disney books might be great. They don't really appeal to me that much. I like Disney. I like some of these movies. I don't necessarily care about more stories in that world unless the right creators are involved, if that makes sense. And in this case, it was the creator that drew me to it, but I like it for what it's worth. How much you'll like it probably depends on the same things. Last one I want to talk about this week is the latest Fantastic Four. Do I have anything new to say about Fantastic Four? I've been recommending this run since it started. It blows my mind to think that we're already at issue 19. That means almost 2 years this book's been going. Ryan North is the writer, and what he does is every issue is pretty much a standalone adventure. That is so satisfying in a superhero comic because it is not what we typically get. Now, there's character development, but every issue basically has one sci-fi premise that needs to be overcome. And in this, we're following the Fantastic Four characters we've seen before, but they don't have their powers. And they exist in a 1940s world where Alicia Masters is still blind, but is a top-tier detective. And she's searching for the missing Reed Richards, who's been abducted from the university. So that's the premise. And all the characters are in this issue, we see through like, a hard-boiled detective lens. But there's a sci-fi reason that we're seeing it all. And does it involve Paste Pot Pete? You better believe it. All I can say is it's also resolved by the end of the issue. It's very satisfying. I really think that this has a chance at being remembered as one of Fantastic Four's best runs. That's not easy to say, folks. I mean, when you talk about Fantastic Four's best runs, look, the Lee Kirby run was huge. It went so long. They introduced so many characters. You want to talk about the division of labor and argue who did what? That's a separate story. It was a good run. It was a great run that stands the test of time. I think that John Byrne had a really long, great run on Fantastic Four. I think he lost some steam at the end, but it's still overall fantastic run. Fantastic. Personally, I like Walt Simonson's relatively short run. I think that was really fun. But this run right here, I love that, like, there's been 1 or 2 issues that have had 2-issue stories, but almost all of them have been a single-issue adventure. And it's so fun. It's all like a sci-fi mystery that needs to be solved. So it has a little bit of that, what would I call it? Give me a sec here, I'm thinking. There might be a Twilight Zone flavor to each of these because it's got like a sort of a sci-fi idea with a twist, but it also has some really well-developed characters. I like that they have made Alicia Masters such an important character in this. All the Fantastic Four's kids are pretty important. It's really charming. Steve Englehart was good on FF. I don't think I read a whole lot of his run, to be honest. So those are the comics I read this week. And we got to talk about the X-Men 97 a little bit. That was good. Invincible Season 2 wrapped up on Amazon Prime. That was a really well done show. I thought that it was clever how they addressed the Spider-Man cameo. Wade's FF run was pretty darn good too. You're right. So there's a couple good ones. I like Jonathan Hickman's run. I liked some of Dan Slott's run, but I think he's been better on Spider-Man lately. What else? Is there anything else to talk about in comics? There hasn't been a comic book movie or anything lately, has there? I guess the next one that would theoretically count would be there's a Spy Family animated movie coming out in like a week or something. Yeah, I think that's it. So let me circle back to how it started out, because this is almost 3 hours now. But my guest, Harry Partridge. Harry, thank you for being here. I strongly recommend his comic. I love his animation. If you look up Harry Partridge, you will see his YouTube channel. He makes fantastic animation. He did the animation for Comic Tropes opening. I'm very proud of that. That was fun to collaborate with him, and Harry and his assistant, Yap Chap, deserve all the credit for it. But also, I think that this Starbarians comic that he has is totally worth supporting. So let me present that. I'm going to share a screen real fast. It's this. You can go to Indiegogo and look up Starbarian Tales, already funded, but because it's Indiegogo, you can still buy in, basically. Obviously, that's a really nice number to see for a comic book project. It's going to be 100 pages of comic books. Comic book. It's one story. It's all written and drawn by Harry. I think it looks fantastic. I can't wait to see this. It'll be funny. It'll be exciting. Yeah, it'll be everything you can dream and more. But I wanted to share that again. Thank you, Harry, for showing up. Yep. Harry, the myth and the legend. This has been a long one. This is what happens when I don't have to work the next day. But I do have to, at this point, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I wish I was funnier this week, but maybe next week I'll have that charm and energy. We'll see. Come on, focus on me. Thank you for staying with me through a very strange YouTube experience. I had a good time. I hope you guys had a good time. I will see you next week. Almost done editing the next comic tropes, I think. There's still some work to be done. My wife has helped me tremendously. She actually gathered a ton of the images that I needed while I was at my day job. That's going to save us some time. It's coming soon. So thank you very much. And then next week, I think, is the next time Jim and I will record a new trash movie bonanza. But anyway, yeah, there should be a comic tropes before the next weekly spinner rack. Okay, take care, everybody. Keep reading comics. Be nice to each other. Take care.